Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe. I like to post about books and music, mostly Taylor Swift. Today I'm going to be analyzing every single song on Taylor Swift's album Midnight's, the 3 a.m. edition, including the Hits Different bonus track. That's a lot of songs, that's a lot of interpretations. These are going to be like my own interpretations as a Swiftie since like the debut era. Well, not technically like the very beginning of the debut era, but like before Fearless came out. I will probably go into multiple interpretations for various songs because some of them can be read in different ways. I'm gonna keep this intro short. There are timestamps down below. This is about to be an entire podcast episode. So this song is definitely a little bit reminiscent of Call It What You Want off of Reputation. She starts it off in the first verse kind of saying they're sitting at home staring at the ceiling. This love interest, we know it's Joe, he doesn't ever say too much and he doesn't read into her melancholia. This is such a nice line because, especially after works like Folklore and Evermore that are so terribly depressing, even though Taylor could be in a very good mental state, sometimes it's nice to just feel feelings and just feel sad, and it's really nice to have a partner who's not going to read deeply into this and think it's something that he's doing to cause this. And that can definitely get irritating when you just want to sit and like cry at media or just write heartbreaking songs. She's really relieved that he is not reading into it too much and taking it personally. I've been under scrutiny, you handle it beautifully. Makes me think of my baby's fly like a jet stream high above the whole scene. He's above all of this media attention that Taylor is getting. And then she starts the chorus off with, I feel the lavender haze creeping up on me. Taylor herself has explained this lavender haze as being in love, the all-encompassing love glow. I'm damned if I do give a damn what people say. I think this is something Taylor has had to learn the hard way if she cares too much about what people are saying about her. She really has had to separate her public persona from who she actually is, and especially who she is to the people in her life. That's probably led to her also feeling less like a human because she has kind of this split persona, I guess, but you also kind of have to do that at the same time in order to not go insane because you're damned if you do give a damn what people say. The 1950s shit they want from me. This is interesting because the phrase lavender haze in and of itself is a vintage phrase. Like, I think it's from the 1950s. So for her to say the 1950s shit they want from me, it's like a upside and downside to it. She wants to use this slang from the 50s and have this romanticization of what the 50s were actually like. But then literally 2 lines later, she's like, the 1950s really weren't that good for women. This idea that she needs to settle down and get married and have kids, and like that's kind of what's expected of her. She views that as this 1950s shit they're all wanting from her, and she doesn't really want to do that. She just wants to stay in the lavender haze. It's interesting because Taylor's reputation, I guess, since the beginning of her career has always been about fairy tales and romance, and it was kind of assumed that someone who was that into those ideas would one day want to get married, but it seems like maybe she's starting to view it as a little bit antiquated. We see this rejection of marriage a couple of times on the Midnight's album, and then she elaborates a little bit more in the second verse. All they keep asking me is if I'm gonna be your bride. The only kind of girl they see is a one night or a wife. Normalize just dating someone for a long time, honestly. Again, we see this like my baby's fit like a daydream high above the whole scene in the pre-chorus that's phrased a little bit differently this time. I find it dizzying, they're bringing up my history, but you weren't even listening. So she's just finding it very refreshing how chill this love interest is. Like, he doesn't read into her melancholia. He doesn't care that she's been under scrutiny. He just like is not listening to the press. Anytime they bring up her dating history, he just doesn't care. Now, then we have the bridge. She's saying people can just say what they want to say, talk your talk and go viral. She's just going to stay in love. Get it off your chest, get it off my desk. So to me, I interpreted this as she's telling, whether it's like people trying to go viral from their theories or just the media creating articles in general about how they're married or they have like a quarantine baby was one of the rumors, like just talk your talk, go viral, whatever. I'm just gonna stay over here in this lavender haze. Get it off your chest, get it off my desk. So she's telling these people to get it off their chests, and she wants it off her desk. So like in a business sense, she doesn't want her team coming to her with these rumors. She doesn't care. She doesn't want to address them. She doesn't care to know, like, people are going to talk no matter what. This isn't really that bad of a thing for them to be talking about. It's not like it's going to hurt her image or anything. It's just people making weird theories. She wants it off her desk. But in my reaction, I remember someone commented that they interpreted this as like her talking to her lover, like, get it off your chest, like this love confession or something. I'm not sure how they viewed get it off my desk, but that is another interpretation I wanted to include. I really feel like it's aimed at the people who are trying to go viral though, because I feel like that's the entire main point of the bridge. So yeah, this song is kind of an opener that addresses that reputation of her being married with a kid or whatever, and she's saying, no deal, that's not what I'm doing. She's still that bitch. She's still the biggest pop star. She's still going to continue to break these records. I cannot wait to see this music video. I think this serves mostly as an opener in the sound because it's like one of the most jarring sounding songs on the album. It's like I Think He Knows, but darker. The concept is more like, oh, she's staying up late because she's so in love. We're not getting into that I'm staying up so late because I'm tormented aspect of the album yet. So the first verse starts with something Taylor had hinted at when she talked about her different lyrical genres, cleaning incense off your vinyl shelf. I think this isn't really a metaphor for anything. I believe this is just a very strong visual. She's trying to place us in that room with her when the morning came. So these people have like stayed up all night and they lost track of time, and they were cleaning incense off the vinyl shelf, and they were starting to realize that they had spent all night, they hadn't slept. Laughing with my feet in your lap like you were my closest friend. So it's a very relaxed environment in this first verse. How did we end up on the floor anyway? Your roommate's cheap-ass screw-top rosé. So they're getting tipsy. I see you every day now. So it's like a relaxed type of relationship. They're kind of getting to know each other, but like they feel like they've known each other for a long time. The first chorus also has that relaxed beginning of a relationship feeling. I chose you, the one I was dancing with in New York with no shoes. To have no shoes on is a very carefree type of vibe. Of course, we go into all these different shades of maroon. Taylor is no stranger to the color red. The burgundy on my t-shirt, when you splashed your wine into me, I think this is a hint about how he's going to leave a stain on her. Like, we've seen Taylor talk about how she kind of knows where a relationship is heading before it actually heads there. I Knew You Were Trouble or Wildest Dreams. Like, she wants her lover to think well of her when it's all over. And then we have the song Clean, You're Still All Over Me Like a Wine-Stained Dress I Can't Wear Anymore. I feel like this is a reference to that kind of mark someone leaves on you. The burgundy on my t-shirt, when you splashed your wine into me, like she's forever changed and marked by this person. The mark they saw on my collarbone, this is a hickey, just said in a classier way. Blood rushed into my cheeks, so scarlet, like this very passionate relationship. The rust that grew between telephones, I feel like this is also foreshadowing for how they're going to have a moment of miscommunication, and it's probably going to lead to the end of the relationship. The rust that grew between the telephones, so they're not contacting each other when they should be. It's becoming rusty. It's not in use. They're not using this line to contact each other anymore. The lips I used to call home, so scarlet it was maroon. So this is one of those that can be like interpreted in different ways. I know the Gaylors are like, oh, it's whoever female friend they want to link her to. I definitely think people should be allowed and encouraged to interpret this for their own relationships. I like how this could apply to someone's like lipstick. The lips I used to call home, so scarlet it was maroon. But I also had the idea of like it could be a guy or someone who is not wearing lipstick or who doesn't usually wear lipstick. Like when you're kissing someone all night and then their lips become red, or like red from the wine that they've been drinking all night. A lot of like stains happening, whether it's wine stains on your shirt, your clothes, your lips. Like it's a very careless, carefree vibe. They're just like spilling things everywhere and being careless with their feelings as well. When the silence came, we were shaking, blind, and hazy. Okay, so this is interesting because in the first song, Taylor talks about a lavender haze being a good thing. It's this all-encompassing love that makes you so blind to the outside world that all you want to focus on is this person, and you are just not concerned with the negativity that is in your life. But in this case, blind and hazy, it's like, are we out of the woods yet? The silence came. They're having this miscommunication that is foreshadowed in the chorus with the rust between the telephones and they're not talking anymore. How the hell did we lose sight of us again? Sobbing with your head in your hands, ain't that the way shit always ends? You were standing hollow-eyed in the hallway. The alliteration, first of all. But the hallway being a part of the house that's like between rooms, I think is telling. We are halfway through the song at this point, and she's kind of showing us where this is progressing. They're no longer in this carefree, casual state they were in the first verse. They're now in the hallway. They don't know what's going on. They're blind. They're hazy. They don't know where they're going from here. They are in like this transitionary area of a home, if you're looking at it from an architectural standpoint. Carnations you had thought were roses, that's us. Oh my god, this fucking hurts. She's over here thinking this is this amazing love. She was getting the best vibes from it in the first verse, but now he's saying to her, oh, I'm sorry, I thought this relationship was like a rose, but really it was just a carnation, like it wasn't that special. And that is heartbreaking, the line itself. And she said, but I feel you no matter what, meaning she's fucking marked by this, the mark on her collarbone, the stain on her shirt. This is not something she's going to be able to forget, and she gave up rubies, even though he feels as if, oh, he thought this was a rose, really it was just a carnation, he doesn't really need it anymore. She's kind of like a throwaway thing to him. Then we have the second chorus, which is pretty much the same thing, but instead of I chose you, it's I lost you. So we are seeing the, I guess, country-inspired storytelling of this song. It goes from beginning to end, I think back to like holy ground, something that is destined for failure, and she tells us right from the start, she starts foreshadowing it. She's no stranger to this type of story writing. I find the line looked up at the sky and it was maroon pretty interesting because of course she talks about New York. A lot of times the sky in New York is a maroonish color at night because of pollution. It's also kind of apocalyptic looking, and I think that says a lot about this. That's metaphorical for how this is like the apocalypse. I think back to her lover diary entry, this summer is the apocalypse, I think she wrote. I'm not completely decided on who, like in her real life, this could be. Possibly Harry, I don't know. I keep picturing Tom Hiddleston, like the bleachella look with the burgundy shirt. The bridge, I wake with your memory over me, that's a real fucking legacy to leave. I originally interpreted this, well, I first didn't realize this song was like about a breakup. When I first heard it, I thought the bridge was kind of like, I wake with your memory over me, that's a real fucking legacy to leave. It's ironic for Taylor to be telling her love interest that he has a legacy he is leaving, when Taylor herself is literally an icon. She is a legend. She's leaving a legacy in her industry unlike any other, and for her to be like, no, it's you that's leaving a legacy, it reminds me of Cornelia Street when she sings, I get mystified by how the city screams your name. Like Joe, that one's obviously about Joe. It's funny because it's Taylor's name that people are screaming all the time, but to her it's like he is the center of her world and like who people should be screaming about, I guess. That's what this felt like to me. He's leaving a legacy. It's ironic coming from Taylor Swift. But then my friend told me she views it as like she's bitter. That's a real fucking legacy to leave. She's angry that he left her and said their love was a carnation when he thought it was a rose, and this is the legacy that he leaves on her, is like her being heartbroken. So that's a real fucking legacy, is pretty bitter. I mean, I think with the fuck word, I'm leaning more towards that now. So definitely a Red era reminiscent song. I know it feels like Tom, but I don't think it's about Tom. I think I'm leaning most towards Harry, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't really care. It's just fun to read into it from a poetic standpoint, but of course, as always, leave your theories down in the comments. Okay, this one is tricky. I have gone over several different theories while reading into this one. I'm still low-key undecided. Let's just go through it line by line. I have this thing where I get older but just never wiser. This reminds me of that scene in Miss Americana when she says she feels like she was frozen at the age she got famous. She feels like there was so much growing up to do. By the time she turned 29, she gets older but never wiser. This might still be haunting her because she's living such a sheltered life. She can't go anywhere alone. She can't ever really be alone for like years on end. Everyone just kind of takes care of things for her, and that doesn't provide you with a lot of growth. Midnights become my afternoons. This is relatable for people, especially during like the quarantine times when everybody's schedule was screwed up. Midnights are your midday. It becomes very normalized to you. When my depression works the graveyard shift, all of the people I've ghosted stand there in the room. So this is the first time in this song that she's kind of acknowledging that these issues are kind of her fault. She ghosted these people and now she's haunted by them, but she was the one to ghost them. She could have done something with a little more closure, so she's kind of looking at how she played a part in what is now happening to her and haunting her in the middle of the night. I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices, and vices, I end up in crisis. So even though she feels like she gets older but never wiser, she's also saying she doesn't think she should really be left alone because it never ends well. She's so used to probably having bodyguards around her at all times that if she ever is truly alone, she's not used to it. It's a jarring thing that ends in crisis. Tale as old as time, very Beauty and the Beast. One day I'll watch as you're leaving because you got tired of my scheming. This could be either a love interest or like her fans. I think she does kind of address her fans in this a couple times. We'll get into that. You got tired of my scheming. She's talked before about how she's afraid maybe we'll get tired of like Easter eggs at some point and then she will stop doing them, but she also seems to be afraid of people not liking her calculated way of doing things. I don't say calculated in a negative way. I mean just all of her extra planning and planning things out in advance. And are people gonna get tired of that scheming? It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. sounds kind of maybe sarcastic. It's hard to tell like a tone through a song because she's singing, but it also sounds like someone who's dealt with narcissistic abuse. Oh, I'm the problem, okay? Like, and you internalize that so much and repeat it over and over, you start to believe it even though they are. And I think dealing with the media in this way is a form of narcissistic abuse. The media is a narcissist, and I think she is internalizing this in a way that's, most people don't deal with this, is a toxic relationship between a celebrity and the media, especially if you want to remain feeling like a person. She's saying everybody agrees, and because the media is this huge thing, it's not just one person, it feels like everybody is saying these things because it's all just headlines. It could be sarcastic, it could be like, sure, it's me, I'm the problem, okay. As someone who's on the receiving end of narcissistic abuse, I'll stare directly at the sun but never in the mirror. It seems like she will face these challenges head on, and she will be very ambitious with trying to break these records, but to look inside herself and self-reflect is a very daunting thing for her. It must be exhausting always rooting for the anti-hero. This feels like it's addressing her fans for sure. Like, isn't this exhausting to be a fan of me for like 12, 15 years? Some of us have been here. And then the infamous, sometimes I feel like everybody is a sexy baby and I'm a monster on the hill. This could be read a bunch of different ways. I think it's a valid critique of the music industry, how it seems like these pop stars and celebrities just keep getting like younger and younger and sexier. But this has also been a thing that's been going on for a while when you think back to like Britney Spears era, the like sexy schoolgirl thing for, I think it was the Oops, I Did It Again music video. This is nothing new, but I think it's becoming even more so pushed because of the advancements in like plastic surgery, like for people to look younger and younger. Artificially, that wasn't as much of a thing even just like 30 years ago. And I'm a monster on the hill. We saw the scene that she cut out of the music video. We know she struggled with an ED. I also feel like her being as tall as she is, I know that feeling. I'm the same height as her, and sometimes I see myself in pictures and I'm like, Jesus Christ, that is a different species of a woman. That could be an occasional insecurity. I know women are like hyped up for being tall, like a model or whatever, but genuinely sometimes you just feel so galumping and large, especially if you're not like a stick thin tall woman like Taylor kind of previously was, but like isn't quite as, she's still thin, don't get me wrong, but like when you're tall and you're not super thin, you tend to feel enormous because you are so much bigger than everybody else, even if you're not like overweight necessarily. It's a weird feeling, but I get it. Too big to hang out, slowly lurching toward your favorite city. So this feels like a Godzilla reference, slowly lurching toward your favorite city. She feels like this monster, it parallels, but also it feels like anytime she moves to a new city, like I think the people in Rhode Island were pretty pissed off when she moved into that house. Didn't the taxes increase or something? Like anywhere she goes, it's this whole event. Too big to hang out. I feel like this is a commentary on how big like her star is. She can't just have a chill day with her friends going to the movies. She's too big to hang out. And she parallels this to like an actual physical feeling of being too big, which is related to like the ED and being taller than everybody else in the room. Pierced through the heart but never killed. This is what made me think this album is like the Cockroach era. It's her 10th album and she's still just thriving and breaking records. On one hand, it's like you can never kill her. Ask me why so many fade, but I'm still here. There's a positive to this, but it also feels like maybe she thinks sometimes people really want her to leave and she's just unkillable. She's never going to have an unsuccessful period, I guess. And sometimes she probably really feels that exhaustion from some people who I guess like are the haters. Like the media can attack her all they want and she's just never going to fade. She's never going to be out of people's faces. It makes me think of the Kardashians, how a lot of people say everything I know about the Kardashians I learned against my will. She maybe at some point feels like she's one of those headlines that people can't escape. Did you hear my covert narcissism I disguise as altruism like some kind of congressman? This also kind of feels sarcastic. Like she's like, okay, yes, I'm a narcissist and I'm the problem and I'm blah blah blah, and she's repeating these things that the media tells her and she doesn't think they're completely true. It probably also feels dehumanizing. It does make me think of the Lover era and how especially You Need to Calm Down in that music video seemed a little bit like she was blurring the lines between allyship and capitalism. She was trying to sell records at the end of the day. She wanted to break records, and this was like a narcissistic thing for her that she disguises as this love for the LGBTQ community. I think there was some authenticity there. Like I don't think she's a Republican. But I also think she was kind of using it to her advantage. She probably thought, okay, this entire album is about love. Love is love. She thought about how she could incorporate gay rights into it. I don't know, this is where, again, it starts to blur like her public persona with who she actually is. But yeah, even the delivery of it sounds kind of sarcastic. Did you hear my covert? Did you hear? Like, she's saying, like, did you read this headline? Like, did you hear that this is what I'm doing now? And that's gotta be very dehumanizing. And she even spits the word congressman. Like, she's just incredulous with this is how people are interpreting her to be, but also she has to, again, separate public persona from who she is. When Dale watches her leaving, life will lose all its meaning. Very depressing, but similar to the first pre-chorus. The bridge is so fun. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. It's very literal. I think this is a nightmare that she's having. It fits very well with the Midnight's theme. My daughter-in-law kills me for the money. She thinks I left them in the will. The family gathers around and reads it, and then someone screams out she's laughing up at us from hell. So what's not being said in this is just that she didn't actually leave her in the will. So they killed her without even being able to collect her inheritance. It also goes with maybe this fear that like everybody thinks she's going to hell. Everybody like hates her, thinks she's a narcissist, a problem, whatever, especially in the media, having a field day with her sometimes. And I guess she has this fear that that's going to translate into her family being really irritated that she's too big to hang out with. She's afraid her children are going to hate her one day just because of her fame and who she's perceived as being. I feel like this song is what The Archer wishes it was. I mean, The Archer has pretty good lyrics, but it's not a bop. I feel like The Archer wanted to be a bop, but it's more like a strange production choice, and this one is like, it really hits. The dynamic contrast is amazing. This is The Archer of this album, except even better, it was obviously the lead single, the first music video. Taylor knows this. She's pretty self-aware, as we see. I love the Lana lyrical influences on this. I mean, it is a fucking crime that she's not like really singing on it, but I love how much Taylor builds up this love interest as being like bigger than her, I guess. I get mystified by how the city screams your name. I wake with your memory over me. That's a real fucking legacy to leave. One night a few moons ago, I saw flecks of what could have been lights, but it might just have been you. So like, he's literally so bright to her that she's mistaking him for lights. So this is like the beginning of a relationship, but it's not going awful yet, at least. Time can't stop me quite like you did. So he's passing her by. Rare as the glimmer of a comet in the sky. Again, she's comparing him to like a comet, a bright light. All of these things that are just like jarring for everybody. Highly suspicious. Everyone who sees him wants him. Even if it's just all in her own head, she views him as literally a shooting star. My flight was awful. Thanks for asking. I'm unglued thanks to you. I don't feel like this really means much other than she's just like jet lagged plus being unglued because of him, like being so obsessed with him. Snow at the beach, weird but fucking beautiful. Lana wrote that line. You will not convince me otherwise. Stars by the pocketful, so this guy is a star to her, a bright light. She's able to like take him and put him in her pocket. You wanting me feels impossible, but it's coming down, no sound, it's all around like snow on the beach. Like, it's actually happening. It's just this shock that it even is happening. I also feel like Lana wrote this line. This scene feels like what I once saw on a screen. I searched Aurora Borealis green. I've never seen someone lit from within, so again, more like personifying lights as him. Blurring out my periphery. This reminds me again of like the haze. This is more reminiscent of the lavender haze as opposed to the blind and hazy thing from Maroon. She's just so in this haze of love as opposed to like confusion. My smile is like I won a contest. I think back to You Can't Possibly Be That Surprised all the time, like at awards shows when she would get so shocked that she won. I actually always thought those were actually quite genuine because I felt like that's how I would feel if that was me. It's fucking shocking to win like anything. I don't know. I just feel like even after so long and even after you think maybe I will win it, it's still like, you don't want to get your hopes up, so you don't want to really expect it because then you'll be so disappointed. So of course, if you have that mindset, it's going to be very surprising to win. So her smile is like those instances in her life, and to hide that would be dishonest. She's like defending her past expressions at award shows. So then we see this like fear in the bridge because so many of these songs that elaborate on the beginning of a relationship do end badly. She can't even speak. She's afraid to jinx it. She doesn't even dare to wish it, but his eyes are flying saucers. Comet in the sky, lights, Aurora Borealis, a lot of these like space, bright light type of metaphors. He's otherworldly to her. Now I'm all for you like Janet. There's a Janet Jackson song called All For You. It's from 2001. Some of us might not be able to catch that. Can this be a real thing? She's asking. So it's just very in shock. Like, bitch, you're Taylor Swift. Of course he's going to like you. It kind of makes me think of Gorgeous. Like, she's just so tormented on wanting to know whether he likes her back, and then when she finds out he actually does, it just feels impossible to her. It doesn't matter who she is because he's a fucking comet to her. She sees herself as like lowly and like the problem, I guess, sometimes. This song is a letter to her past self, but it also kind of touches on the present time or like a little bit later in her career. I play it cool with the best of them. So summer went away, but still the yearning stays. She's trying to get the attention of this boy when she's definitely like a teenager. They're best friends. It's giving like Drew. Drew talks to me like about that girl and she's just dying for him to notice her. I hear it in your voice. You're smoking with your boys. I touch my phone as if it's your face. This makes me think of our song when we're on the phone and you talk real slow because it's late, your mama don't know. It just goes back to her teenagehood a lot. I didn't choose this town, I dream of getting out, but only he could make her stay. So this love interest from her high school years, maybe middle school, I don't know. When she says like, I didn't choose this town, I dream of getting out, like there's a couple of themes of her like not liking her hometown on this album. I can't see that being Nashville. I know she views Nashville as her hometown because she moved there when she was in high school, but Nashville is definitely the town of opportunities for what she wanted to do. So I don't see this being about Nashville. I feel like it's about Pennsylvania, which would be even younger. So this is like a middle school. Well, it's not like they actually ended up dating. This is just a crush he had. So, I mean, crushes in middle school are like your entire world. There's just one who could make me stay. So if this like childhood love of hers actually liked her back, she would reconsider forcing her parents to take her to Nashville. From sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes. So this seems like the passage of time. Sprinkler splashes as a child to ashes in the fireplace, like your childhood is gone, burned away. I waited ages to see you there. I searched the party of better bodies just to learn that you never cared. You're on your own, kid, you always have been. I wonder if this is not just about her crush from her early days, but maybe even friendships or even just him as a friend in general. Her old friends never really cared. They never supported what she wanted to do. You're on your own, kid, you always have been. Like she didn't have friends in the beginning. And this is her speaking to her past self at this point. You're on your own, kid, you always have been. It'll be okay. And then it becomes optimistic. She sees the great escape. So long, Daisy May. People think this is her hinting at another child of Blake Lively, Daisy May. I think I googled this in my reaction. Daisy May meaning like your average girl, your average Joe, but like female. So long, Daisy May. She wants to be somebody in this world, basically. I picked the petals, he loves me not. So she's closing the chapter on this crush that she spoke about in the first verse. She decides he doesn't love her. She's getting closure from this, but something different bloomed. This is when she encounters her love of songwriting. She's playing her songs, performing. She runs away. I called a taxi to take me there. So this feels like when she is getting to Nashville at this point. She is at a party again, searching the party of better bodies just to learn that her dreams aren't rare. So at this point, she has accepted that her friends aren't going to support her. She's going to be her own support system. Now she's learning that she's not the only one who wants this. Now that she's around like-minded people, there's competition. And she's again telling her past self, you're on your own, kid, but you always have been. Like you didn't have a support system in the beginning and now you have to deal with competition. You can get through all of these hurdles. And now it kind of shows everything she's sacrificed for what she has now. She gave her blood, sweat, and tears. She hosted parties, starved her body. This makes me think of how much she was trying to have control over how she was viewed in the media, like hosting parties and staying thin. The 1989 era, definitely. She had her girl squad. She wanted to be seen as like a girl's girl. I remember her saying at some point, people said she dated too much, so she just stopped dating and she was only hanging out with her friends. And I think this was a conscious choice, hosting parties, making sure she fit into specific sizes. Like I'd be saved by a perfect kiss, which is funny because she previously was saying like, he loves me not, I'm going to focus on myself. And now here she is later in her career, like in her mid-20s, as if she's going to be saved by a perfect kiss. But like she had learned that this boy is not going to save her, like that he never cared. And she should know that by this point. She's making the same mistakes. The jokes weren't funny. I took the money. Took the money and your dignity and got the hell out. This makes me think of it progressing more towards the Reputation era. She gets just so fed up with what the media is saying about her. It's not funny. She took her money and tried to have her peace of mind. My friends from home don't know what to say. Too big to hang out. She probably is treated differently by these people who were previously her friends. But also it's like she did talk about them as just to learn that you never cared. Probably not that surprising. Or she hinted at what would happen in the future. In the beginning of the song, I looked around in a blood-soaked gown. This is a fucking Carrie reference. Stephen King, Carrie. When the pig's blood gets dumped on Carrie, she looks around and she realizes she's gonna kill everyone. But this is different. She saw something they can't take away. I feel like she's talking about like Carrie's telekinetic telekinetic powers. Like, Taylor has something within her that can never be taken away. It's not the telekinetic powers to kill people, but like there's a little bit of parallels here, I guess. Like, Carrie was like an outsider, and Taylor has probably felt that way a few times in her life, especially before she was famous. There's something within her that they can't take away, and she's viewing her past self and like seeing that thing staying with her throughout her entire career, no matter how much things change. Bridges were burned, but pages were turned. She's been writing through all of this, documenting her entire life. Everything you lose is a step you take. I think about her masters, the music that she lost, her past. That makes this hit even harder. It's like talking about her past self, knowing she can't even own the things that she created out of all of this pain that she's remembering in this song. But it's a step she'll take, and she will be okay. She's been okay every single time before. I think this is both a letter to her past self and also something to soothe her present self. So make the friendship bracelets, whatever. Have that girl group she's saying to her past self. Girl squad. Yeah, it was a squad back then, I remember. Take the moment and taste it. You've got no reason to be afraid. I think maybe telling her past self not to worry so much. You can't have control over everything. There are going to be bad things that happen to you that you cannot stop. So just try to live in the moment, she's saying. And even though some of those friendships might betray her, she probably feels that she's gained something from them at the same time. I think back to "It's time to go. The words of a sister come back in whispers. The proof she was not, in fact, what she seemed. Not a twin from your dreams. She's a crook who was caught." I think Taylor ultimately is saying she cannot regret those friendships because she did learn things from them, even though they ultimately ended badly. You can face this, and you're on your own. There's nothing you can do to prevent the things that have happened to you in your life. This is probably one of the deepest songs. It also takes place over such a long period of time. I think it's also another assurance that Taylor never really changed that much. Like, the Reputation era was all about the old Taylor is dead, but then in these more recent eras, we see that that's not quite completely true. Okay, I talked about this one a little bit in one of my Midnight's Manifest Week vlogs. I was undecided on who this song exactly is about, and now I think I've come to the conclusion that it's about multiple relationships. So she goes back to like hating this 1950s shit people want from her, not wanting to get married. He wanted a bride, that she was making her own name. Her career meant more to her than marriage, even though she was this very like romance-hungry girl. It was more like her romanticizing these situations and using that to turn it into art, as opposed to like actually really loving the romance of it all and preferring that to creating art. He wanted it comfortable. I wanted that pain. He wanted a bride. This makes me think not just of getting married, but like settling down and like owning a home, I guess. She wanted to be on tour, which is literally not comfortable, like physically. Like, she talked about those radio tours she was doing, like jumping from like hotel to hotel in her mom's car or whatever. That's not a comfortable thing to be doing, but it's also like that pain creates art, and that's probably a view she had in the beginning of her career. And in recent years, she has said that she doesn't necessarily think artists have to suffer to create art, but that's probably what she thought in the beginning, honestly. And she's just referencing her old views. Chasing that fame, he stayed the same. All of me changed like midnight rain. So she's had to grow and evolve and change so much over the years, but also not completely growing up, more just changing like her eras that she's had. For example, she's talked to Miss Americana how she's had to reinvent herself so many times, and female artists tend to have to do that more than men, which is not how people typically operate if they're not doing this for like their art and their commercial success. Regular people don't really have like eras. My town was a wasteland. This is again parallels to You're on Your Own, Kid. I didn't choose this town, I dream of getting out. I feel like she's talking about Pennsylvania, but then she's talking about these pageant queens and big pretenders, which is giving Nashville to me, because like all these people who want to make it, big pretenders, maybe there was some like snakes in the industry. The little small town Pennsylvania where nobody else was like interested in music. I don't see that being Pennsylvania, but I'm conflicted on this. It's definitely like her youth, middle school, high school, one of those things. But for some, it was paradise. And then she introduces us to this boy that she is in love with, who's in this town, whether it's her hometown, or Nashville. I broke his heart because he was nice. So this is someone from her early days. I don't know, I think of like the guy from 15. Back then I swore I was gonna marry him someday. These little ideas we have as teenagers that we're going to marry someone, or oh my god, when the boy is like more pushy than the girl and he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna marry you one day. I've experienced that when I was younger. We were happy the like farm they were gonna buy or something, your daddy's farm we were gonna buy one day. There's a few references to like being with someone forever in her early albums. I feel like that's who this verse is about. When she's saying he wanted it comfortable, he wanted a bride, I think she's referencing multiple guys. Because then we get in the second verse something that feels pretty different from the first one. It came like a postcard, picture perfect, shiny family, holiday peppermint candy. Back to December, anyone? This one feels like Taylor Lautner. I peered through a window, a deep portal, time travel. I feel like this is her looking back on the first guy in the first verse. Time travel, like she's seeing a pattern. She keeps like getting with these guys who are very nice, very good guys, but she just doesn't want to commit at this point in her life, or she maybe never wants to do that. She wants to like really focus on her career, all the love we unravel and the life I gave away. So she like keeps giving away this opportunity to settle down, whether it's when she was like a teenager and staying with this guy could lead to marriage, or this guy in the second verse, Taylor Lautner. She's giving this up again. She doesn't want this commitment. She wants to go have her tumultuous red relationship. She's still not done. She needs to get her heart broken for her art. And then in the outro, I guess sometimes we all get just what we wanted. So she's saying she like let these people go and now they never think of her, and that's something that kind of torments her at night, even though when it comes down to it, it's not something she thinks about, but she does on midnights like this. It makes me think of when you're like laying in bed at night, you just start like social media stalking people. Like these are not people you think of during your waking hours, but in the night, all of the people I've ghosted stand there in the room. So this is just a snippet of her looking back on these relationships that could have led to marriage, as opposed to like some of the relationships that definitely weren't going to end in marriage. Exhibit A. Exhibit B. Okay, a lot of people have questions about this one. I feel like I've pretty much gotten the grasp on this one. So she literally samples Out of the Woods. This is a fucking Harry Styles song. We all know who Out of the Woods is about, okay? I understand it's irritating for her when like the media only writes about her albums in the context of who they're about, as opposed to like the artistry of it all. But as someone who's been here forever, she dropped those liner notes for us. She wanted us to like speculate. It was definitely like a marketing tactic. It was very smart. I think it was a good idea to do. I think she wants us to know what's going on. She just doesn't want the only thing people ask her in interviews to be about who's the album about, as opposed to like actual artistic questions. I remember, so she's telling us this is the Out of the Woods continuation. Good girl, sad boy, good girl, referencing style. I mean, right off the bat. Big city, wrong choices. I think of like New York and maroon. Maybe maroon is Harry. I don't know. We had one thing going on, I swear that it was something, because I don't remember who I was before you painted all my nights, a color I've searched for since. The rest of the world was black and white, but we were in screaming color. But also, this makes me think of illicit affairs, a color I can't see with anyone else, or whatever the line is. But one thing after another, fucking situations, circumstances, miscommunications, right person, wrong time, miscommunications, again, kind of like the rust that grew between telephones, and then this Out of the Woods haziness, blind and hazy, confusion, miscommunication. And she wants some explanations. She wants to just ask this person these questions, and I think these are rhetorical. Can I ask you a question? So I'm getting New Year's Eve vibes from this. Did you ever have someone kiss you in a crowded room? This is like a kiss at midnight, like New Year's Eve. I also think there was like an infamous Harry Taylor kiss in Times Square. I think it was very public. And every single one of your friends was making fun of you, but 15 seconds later they were clapping too. Then what did you do? And the delivery of this is so funny. Did you leave her house in the middle of the night? Oh. Did you wish you'd put up more of a fight? Oh. It's just a question. Like, this really is her, like, having a conversation with herself about what she would say to this person. We've all been there, like, having imaginary fights in the shower. Did you leave her house in the middle of the night? Midnight, you come and pick me up, no headlights. So there's, like, sneaking around aspects, even though they did kiss in a crowded room. I don't think this relationship was ever completely defined. Did you wish you'd put up more of a fight? So she's wondering, did it even, like, matter to you how it mattered to me? Ooh, the two lines together, when she said it was too much, do you wish you could still touch her, feel rough. When I first listened to that, I was like, oh my god, is this some kind of like essay thing? I don't think it is. I think they're kind of like separate questions from each other. Like, she said it was too much, as in she's overwhelmed by this relationship, not like by this physical like touching. I don't think it's like predatory. Maybe, I don't know. It's weird that they're right next to each other and they feel like a continuation. But yeah, she's saying it's just a question. It's like writing a letter to someone that you're not going to send. But also, I saw a reading on TikTok. It came up on like my For You page. I think her username is like Moonybug or something. She was giving an LGBTQ reading into this. Did you ever have someone kiss you in a crowded room? And how the stakes are so much higher when you are gay. Like, especially now, there's the possibility someone could get violent, someone could get mad because you are just like sharing a kiss with someone you love. And every single one of your friends was making fun of you. It's not as much like teasing now, as much as like maybe you do have like some shitty friends, you know? But 15 seconds later, they were clapping too. Performative support. It's pretty interesting when you look at it that way. Leaving her house in the middle of the night because it is a relationship that isn't accepted by everyone. And yeah, especially like as a young person who's trying to figure out like who you like, what you are, someone could get cold feet. It's a pretty interesting reading. But as far as in Taylor's case, I think it's just rhetorical questions of things that did actually happen. Did you ever have someone kiss you in a crowded room? Like, does he remember this the same way that she does? Like, I remember it all too well. We see those themes a lot in her music. She feels gaslit into thinking this didn't even happen. Now I'm standing alone in a crowded room and we're not speaking, and she's dying to know, is it killing you like it's killing me? It feels like that. She's like, did this even fucking happen, or am I insane? Half moon eyes. This makes me think of like when someone's drunk, their eyes aren't completely open, or like sleepy, or it could be a multitude of things. Someone looking at you with like half-lidded eyes. Did you realize out of time he wanted her back at some points, but people like you always want back the love they gave away, and people like me are gone forever. When you say goodbye, that was so fucked up. That was not the line. You know what I mean. She was on your mind with some dickhead guy that you saw that night, Calvin Harris, but you were on something, so he didn't really care that much. It was one drink after another. Fucking politics and gender roles, and you're not sure and I don't know. That's vague. It's definitely vague. The you're not sure and I don't know also feels like blurred consent. Like the whole thing in the chorus when she said it was too much, do you wish you could still touch her? You're not sure and I don't know. So there's no definite yes. What the fuck is going on? That part I'm still a little unsure on. The gender roles, it makes me think of her disdain for this marriage. She wanted a bride. I'll like keep asking me as if I'm gonna be your bride. They're distracted by something here, but she still wants to have this conversation and ask these questions. Then there's more questions in the bridge, of course. Does it feel like everything's just like second best after that meteor strike? So it's more like, did this affect you? How it affected me? And what's that I heard that you're still with her? That's nice. I'm sure that's what's suitable and right. There's like sarcasm to it. She's like, didn't you just love the tumultuousness of this though? Even though she has said before, love is not supposed to be burning red and crazy and exploding. It's supposed to be warm and golden like daylight. It's still fun to romanticize this kind of craziness for art, for sure. So she's kind of being an enabler. That's nice. I'm sure that's suitable. But, and then she's essentially going, remember when all of this happened? That's the real question. It's not, did you ever do this? Did you ever have this happen? It's like, do you fucking remember this like I do? It's just a question. Okay, I really underestimated how long this was going to take to film. I'm going to come back tomorrow. Now we're going to cut to me tomorrow. Also, I put my lighting away, but more My Lover is Outer Space parallels. Everything's just second best after that meteor strike, paralleling to Rare as the Glimmer of a Comet in the Sky and Your Eyes Are Flying Saucers from Another Planet. She really likes to make her love interests be just like larger than life, and I think that's what like breaks her so much in the end. So I'm on track 8 and I already have an hour of footage, and it made me realize and want to point out that anyone who says they don't like Midnights because the lyrics are weak in comparison to Folklore and Evermore are just straight up wrong. I'm trying to make this as thorough as I can, and I know I'm going to miss things even though I'm expecting this to be an hour-long video. This album is incredibly poetic and deep, just as much as Folklore and Evermore. Like, you can say you don't like the pop genre and sound as much as you want, that's valid. I also prefer the folky style, or to not enjoy the autobiographical stuff as much as the mythical fiction of Folklore and Evermore. But to say the lyricism is weak is just incorrect, especially when you compare the singles on this album to the singles on albums that came prior to Folklore and Evermore. There is not a single song with weak lyrics like there have been on some previous albums of hers. Okay, on to vigilante shit. I don't want to be here all night. I'm seeing a lot of these like strange criticisms on TikTok, like vigilante shit is for the girlies who are too anxious to ask for extra ketchup when they order french fries, or like vigilante shit is the favorite song of like bitches who will never do vigilante shit. But it's like, are you even listening to the lyrics? Like, this is not about someone about to like kill a man. I mean, it says draw the cat eye sharp enough to kill a man. It's like hyping yourself up to be a narc. That's what it is. This is my favorite song on Midnights, surely because I think the one-liners are amazing. I don't know, it's just like a personal thing. I also quite like the arrangements. I know a lot of people aren't too keen on the sound, but like the people who say this is for girlies who won't do anything, are they even listening to the lyrics? The entire song is about dressing like a bad bitch, which isn't hard, sending an envelope with proof of cheating to someone's wife. That is so passive aggressive. Like, all you do is you're sending mail. She's sending mail, like, really? And reporting him to the FBI. She's being a tattletale. Like, what makes you think this is some kind kind of super hard song. Like, we have No Body, No Crime, where she's literally killing someone. Nobody said anything about that one. So yeah, I'm not understanding that trend, but this falls into that area of Midnights where she's just like fantasizing about revenge in the middle of the night. There are certain lines that kind of point to certain people this might be directed towards, but I do think ultimately it's just a romanticization of revenge. I see that a lot on Karma as well. We will go into that later. You did some bad things, but I'm the worst of them. So she feels extremely victimized by this person. Maybe it's a few different people. She might just be kind of combining all of her betrayed experiences into one. They say looks can kill, and I might try. This is not a bad bitch song. This is like just someone being angry. Everybody gets angry. You know, she's getting dressed up in the entire first verse. She's dressing for revenge. She's putting her eyeliner on. She's saying looks can kill. Like, she doesn't really mean to actually kill someone. This isn't No Body, No Crime. They're not even related. I mean, they sound like they could be kind of, but yeah, No Body, No Crime means business. This one is just someone who's super spiteful, and she's not going to confront this person. She's not talking to this person at all. She's literally just trying to make their life hell from the sidelines, indirectly reporting them for white-collar crimes, telling their spouse they're cheating. This isn't even for people who want to pretend to be a hard ass, because the entire song is about being a tattletale. Don't get sad, get even. So she's encouraging people to report on their enemies. It's very, very reminiscent of the little Soviet boy Morozov that my mom was taught all about growing up in Ukraine. Report on them, basically. I don't start shit, but I can tell you how it ends. It makes me think of Marie from the Aristocats. Ladies don't start fights, but they can finish them. It's like a twist on that phrase. I wonder if she was inspired by that. I don't dress for friends. I've been dressing for revenge. It's like a fashion thing. She's making herself feel like a bad bitch through her clothes, through her makeup, through the envelopes she's sending to people to try to ruin this guy's life. I mean, people are really making connections to Scooter in most of these because I guess he and his wife divorced. I'm not too up to date on his personal life. I don't care to think about him more than I need to. Picture me thick as thieves with your ex-wife, and she looks so pretty driving in your Benz. It sounds fruity, I'm not gonna lie. I would just like lose my mind if Taylor actually told this woman that Scooter was cheating on her. Like, how would Taylor know? She tries to keep this man as far away from her as possible. It's quite interesting. I think it's just kind of like imagination. Like, what if she would have had this dirt on him? It would have been so satisfying to tell on him in these multiple ways. The bridge, ladies always rise above. Ladies know what people want. Someone sweet and kind and fun. The lady simply had enough. We see these kinds of like good girl goes bad, I guess, things in Taylor's music, especially more recently as she kind of deconstructed her good girl image, like tolerate it, break free and leave us in ruins, like this woman who simply had enough. Basically, the consequences that can come from that, also like taking back your own reputation. Like in No Body, No Crime, Esty confronts her husband and that has repercussions. Women are supposed to just like let shit happen. But in this case, the lady simply had enough. I think that's where people are kind of drawing parallels to No Body, No Crime. The lady actually does something about this horrible situation she's in. They're always supposed to rise above and know what people want and be sweet and kind and fun. It's also like reminiscent of The Last Great American Dynasty, the maddest woman this town has ever seen. Those kind of perceptions people have of women who do not fit into the mold happens a lot in Taylor's music. Then we have her reporting on his white collar crimes while he's doing lines, cocaine reference. Yep, I predicted there to be a cocaine reference on this album because Snow on the Beach with Lana Del Rey, and I thought Lana would have written something. Well, I thought she was going to be singing on it. I don't know why I thought that, considering Taylor's track record with like female duets, but if that would have happened, it would have been a Lana line. I was very surprised that it was actually Taylor writing the line and singing it. So we got our cocaine reference. I don't know what that's a reference to. I guess Scooter is shady and he got in trouble. He got sued or something. That's not quite the FBI. I also don't think Taylor had anything to do with it because I don't think she has any inside information on him because she fucking hates him and wants him to stay away from her. But I think this is just middle of the night fantasizing like, ooh, what if I was doing this and I was like dressing like a bad bitch and I knew all this inside dirt on him, and just getting like way ahead of herself. It's pretty self-explanatory. I talked about this a little bit in one of my Midnights Manifest Week vlogs, but basically when I first heard this song, I thought it was reminiscent of Mirrorball in the sense that it was like, I'm still shiny and awesome, and just because I'm in my 30s doesn't mean I can be discarded purely because I'm in the music industry where women are discarded after the age of 30. Like the entire chorus, pretty much, I was interpreting it as best believe I'm still bejeweled, like best believe I'm gonna be breaking fucking records, best believe Midnights is going to be even more successful than 1989, which was written woman during her like peak age, I guess. I hate that so much. A 25-year-old woman versus like her 7-8 years later having even more success. Like, best believe I can still do this regardless of you thinking I'm old. She called herself a geriatric pop star at one point during one of the Midnight's era interviews. When I walk in the room, I can still make the whole place shimmer. Like, she still has this influence over the music industry. And I was interpreting, and when I meet the band, they ask, do you have a man? I could still say I don't remember, as like she still has the ability to be this youthful, ditzy, flirty energy. Flirty blonde girl, whatever, like, oh, I don't remember. People are still into her. Familiarity breeds contempt. Don't put me in the basement when I want the penthouse of your heart. This is interesting because Taylor has always talked about like kind of wanting like this private side to her life. She wants things to feel normal. She wants to feel like a person. We see that kind of escapism on the lakes, like getting away from all these tweets and paparazzi. But I feel like there is a part of her that just loves the attention and loves being on top. The amount of cash grabs that were involved with the Midnight's era that were so obviously linked to wanting to sell as many records as possible to break records tells me that like she's not really ever satisfied with what she's achieved. There always could be more, and maybe she always has this kind of like fear of not being relevant at the same time. It's like kind of a double-edged sword because obviously you don't get the kind of privacy you sometimes crave or being stalked, but who wants to be irrelevant, you know? And she's afraid of this like familiarity breeds contempt. She's been in the public eye for so long. She's afraid. I mean, we did see how familiarity breeds contempt when 2016 happened and the whole Kanye thing, and she fell from grace there, but she does not want to be put in the basement. She wants to be the apple of our eye. She wants to be in the penthouse of our hearts. I polish up real nice, like really proving to us she's still that bitch. However, now that I've like really looked at the verses and everything, because the chorus is the thing that really stuck in my head when I was first listening to it in my reaction, the verses definitely detail a relationship, and familiarity breeds contempt, as in she's been in this relationship for a while and she doesn't feel appreciated anymore. I don't think it has anything to do with fame in the public eye anymore. I just still love that interpretation of the chorus, so that's why I'm sharing it with you, even though I don't think it's like what she intended. I was really hoping and expecting a Cinderella reference on this album. We didn't get that until she released the music video for Bejeweled. There's a hint in the lyrics. Didn't notice you walking all over my peace of mind in the shoes I gave you as a present. This is like giving fairy godmother. It's interesting that she didn't do some kind of cool spin on the fairy godmother. She was like Cinderella. She went the classic route of like turning herself into the classic protagonist instead of doing some kind of thing from the fairy godmother's point of view, which I think would have been interesting for a music video. But yeah, I'm getting like fairy godmother, like Cinderella's being ungrateful or something. So she sees herself being a little too kind, someone sweet and kind and fun. The lady simply had enough. It's telling that this comes after vigilante shit, because she's kind of doing her own vigilante shit in this song. Like, by the way, I'm going out tonight, and she's like trying to make him jealous. Again, more bad bitch stuff that isn't really that bad bitch. Like, she's literally just being passive aggressive again. So she's basically saying, didn't notice you walking all over my peace of mind in the shoes I give you as a present, meaning she did so much for this person and he's walking all over her peace of mind using the advantage she gave to him. It could mean anything. Maybe it is like money, like if he spends my change then he had it coming. Maybe it's about that kind of relationship she wrote something bad about. This is Calvin Harris. Like, I just don't feel like there's really much else it could be. That entire relationship kind of fascinates me because I was there for 1989 and they seemed like so in love. Like, for them to be together for that long, it was the longest relationship she had had at that point. I don't know what went wrong. Did she slowly just start to despise him because he was treating her like she was average, or he became like contemptful of her because it had been so long that they like went past that honeymoon phase and it was like ambivalent toleration, I guess. And then she couldn't figure out a way to get him to leave her, and she was trying to get out of it by like cheating on him, and it was just a whole disaster. It's a very interesting dynamic she hasn't written about too much, but I think this is where things started to go wrong. Like, he's been taking her for granted and she's like, hey, I'm still that bitch. By the way, I'm going out tonight. I keep picturing the Met Gala where she like met, well, both Joe and Tom Hiddleston, but she ended up going home with Tom. It's giving April 29th. When she walks in the room, she can still make the whole place shimmer. The Bleachella look with the strange dress that made her torso look incredibly long and her legs look short. I don't think it was a good look, but it was eye-catching. People were talking about it. She can still make the whole place shimmer. She can still start shit in the sense that people are talking about her. And when I meet the band, they ask, do you have a man? I could still say I don't remember it. This is like a low blow. This is definitely a dig at Calvin that I was kind of interpreting in a weird way that didn't make a whole lot of sense in the beginning. But yeah, she's basically saying like, I could cheat on you. It's iffy. Her being familiar to him has made him contemptful of her. Maybe she really did want to make this work, but the way he was treating her towards the end was completely different from the beginning. Maybe he was like love bombing her. I don't know. We will never know. But she seems like she wants to still be the apple of his eye. Don't put me in the basement when I want the penthouse of your heart. Like, this is her trying still to save this, but it's also definitely kind of toxic because she's trying to make him jealous. She's like, I could say I don't remember if I have a man or not. Did all the extra credit, then got graded on a curve. This reminds me of I was so ahead of the curve. The curve became a sphere. It's interesting because that's like another academic letdown. Like, you try so hard, you do everything you can, and then the teacher just like hits you with some bullshit. I've had that happen. A professor would refuse to round up my 89.59. I'm still bitter because that was my only B that semester. I think it's time to teach some lessons. I love that. It's so biting and it goes along with that academic poetic device she's using. I made you my world. Have you heard I can reclaim the land? I love this. It makes me think of like the Great War a little bit, like this like battlefield tactic type of metaphor. And this is where it seems like she's starting to kind of let go of this guy. I miss you, but I miss sparkling. Like, she misses being single and being able to do whatever she wants, maybe. In the bridge, sapphire tears on my face, sadness became my whole sky. She's really let down by this. Wait, hold on. I feel like the sapphire and the moonstone mean something. So she's basically saying I was covered in these sapphire tears, but some guy said mine were as moonstone. Sapphire is associated with royalty. I feel like sapphire means something. She's crying these sapphires and some guy's like, oh, but your aura is moonstone. And she's like, oh shit, you're right. I'm a bad bitch. It seems like it's following that kind of conversation. Moonstone, I think, is like femininity. I don't know. She's coming to some kind of revelation just because this guy said her aura is moonstone. We're dancing all night. You can try to change my mind, but you might have to wait in line. This is her dancing with Tom, I believe. What's a girl gonna do? A diamond's gotta shine. Feels like a reference to Marilyn Monroe. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, is what it feels like. It's got such a like girls will be girls feel, I guess. I don't know. It's like, this is not her fault. What's she gonna do? There's nothing she can do about it. She has no control over it. I like how when you type in 2016 Met Gala, the first thing that comes up is Taylor Swift. Like, that's the only thing anybody took from that. Okay, so the Met Gala was May 2nd. I think the April 29th she's referring to in High Infidelity is just a couple days before that. That's very telling, I must say. High Infidelity and Bejeweled are connected. This is still my least favorite song. However, it has grown on me. It's just my least favorite one on the album, but it's definitely not one I dislike anymore. It has shifted into something I do like to listen to. It's not a skip. It was in the beginning, maybe. Breathe in, breathe through, breathe deep, breathe out was said in her New York University speech. It only hurts this much right now is a really smart thing to tell yourself when you're in the thick of grieving something, a relationship or anything in your life that you're losing. Time will eventually heal. It can't get worse than in that moment. She was thinking that the whole time as she was grieving, whatever this is. Breathe in, breathe deep, breathe out. Like, this is like one of those anxiety calming methods to just focus on your breathing. I'll be getting over you my whole life. So she's really in the thick of this hurting right now. Even though she tells herself it only hurts this much right now, it's going to get better. She's like, but this, I'm never going to completely get over this. That's the kind of heartbreak time would never mend. The pre-chorus, I hate it so much. You know how scared I am of elevators. Never trust it. If it rises fast, it can't last. You know how she dropped Easter eggs to us that Speak Now Taylor's version is next in a fucking elevator? I'm wondering, is this a red herring? I could be really looking into things too deeply, but like the whole elevator thing feels freaky intentional. I don't like it. I really don't like it. It makes me nervous. It's also very interesting that she chose the word elevators because she could put anything else there. She could do some kind of, was it Achilles who made himself that pair of wings and flew too close to the sun? No, it wasn't Achilles. It was, I forgot who it was. The Greek mythology, that guy flying too close to the sun. She could have done something related to that because elevators is not there to rhyme with something. And also, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Never trust it. If it rises fast, it can't last. It would make sense if it was something that was going to crash, but elevators don't typically crash. Like, what about an elevator is so hard to trust because it rises fast? It can't last? What do you mean an elevator can't last? There's a lot of like fears of of crashing into though, like the plane. She thought it was going down. How do you turn it around? This like optimistic person comes into her life and helps her get through this struggle. I'm pretty sure it's a heartbreak. I don't think it's like a death or anything, because she's like falling in love and she's like, oh shit, I thought I was heartbroken. But yeah, the elevator thing just torments me, because it's like, you could have chosen a lot of other things that would have made a lot more sense. You didn't need this word to rhyme with something. I don't like it. I thought the plane was going down. How'd you turn it right around? Basically, how did you make it so that I was able to fall in love again? She was so consumed with heartbreak, she didn't even realize she was falling. It only feels this raw right now, lost in the labyrinth of my mind. She feels stuck. She uses the word break a lot. Maybe her entire worldview is breaking down, breaking through, breaking free. After she broke up with somebody, you would break your back to make me break a smile. This is such good wordplay. Like, he would literally harm himself just to see her smile. So she is understanding that this is something rare and special. It could be love bombing though if it's the beginning. Especially guys who like swoop in and try to take advantage of a girl who's heartbroken because he knows she's vulnerable. Little red flaggy. You know how much I hate that everybody just expects me to bounce back just like that. Taylor is a person who likes to sit and reflect, and I think the media has this idea of her that she's so crazy productive and she's always working on the next thing, which might be kind of true, but it's like she does need time to process. I think her fans understand that she is somebody who like has a hard time moving on sometimes because she's so reminiscent and she likes to romanticize the past, as we've seen. But yeah, I think there's a huge difference between how her fans treat her and how the media treats her. That's why I feel like her fans kind of have more of a pass to like talk about her relationships and wonder who she wrote songs about and which lines are about different people, because it is ultimately like an artistic endeavor for us. We're so interested in the inspirations behind things, but the media definitely turns it into such a weird low blow type of thing, or they criticize her for doing it and they turn it into like this paternal test. But the fans are literally just looking for references that point to other songs and like what songs are grouped together and about the same person, and it's definitely like a fun thing for us. But yeah, the media twists it into not so fun. They've kind of ruined it for us. And then she just repeats the whole, I thought the plane was going down, how'd you turn it right around, blah blah blah. She's just puzzled that this is working out for her after experiencing such an intense heartbreak. This is one of the smartest songs she's ever written. I love that it's not distinctly about one person who's wronged her. It's kind of just about how obsessed she is with karma and how much of a friend it is to her. I'm getting Kanye vibes, but you could also get like Scooter from it. You're talking shit for the hell of it, addicted to betrayal, but irrelevant. Like, at least you've got that. It's interesting coming after Bejeweled, which sounds so attention grabbing. And in this case, she's criticizing someone for stooping to such low levels just to stay in the public perception. Well, she doesn't try to do awful things to people. She just wants to do interesting things that captivate people, so it's definitely a different motivation. You're terrified to look down because if you dare, you'll see the glare of everyone you burned just to get there. It's coming back around. What goes around comes around. Karma phrase. At first I interpreted, because if you dare, you'll see the glare of everyone you burned just to get there, as like a glaring, like the glare from the sun, like a glare from a light. But now I think it's like a bunch of faces glaring at this person, like looks could kill, like seeing all of these angry people that he stepped on just to ascend. I like how it could go both ways, like he's either being blinded by something or they are all actually glaring at him. I keep my side of the street clean, but you wouldn't know what I mean. Oh my god, like trying to do damage control. Taylor is a very calculated individual. She has good reins on her public image, especially now. She doesn't overshare anymore with the media. She also isn't arrogant. Some people who have wronged her can be so freaking cocky, because karma is my boyfriend. This is a fantastic opening line. The boyfriend in Taylor's songs historically is like the center of her world. I like that she says karma is her boyfriend before she even says karma is a god, because to her, throughout her discography, the boyfriend has been like the thing she's trying to obtain, the thing she's always writing about, the thing that people would criticize her for writing about. A lot of her career has revolved around the idea of a boyfriend. It's kind of like, I haven't read this book yet, so don't spoil this for me, but I think about like the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I think there's a quote from it where it's like, how do you feel that that's such a huge phrase? these 7 husbands of yours? And she's like, well, they're all just husbands. I am Evelyn Hugo. Like, Taylor Swift's boyfriend is also just such a pop culture phrase, I guess, for the last 15 years. And they go hand in hand. Like, they're just boyfriends. Sure, they're interchangeable. They all can fill that role of boyfriend. But ultimately, that word, that position is tied back to her. There would be no Taylor Swift boyfriend without Taylor Swift. It's very telling. I feel like this is a gift for the OG Swifties because, oh my god, this was just the center of her world for so long. And then she does all this relaxing imagery, like, well, she has the karma as a god. It's like a religious thing to her. I think karma is like a Buddhist principle or something, so it is tied back to religion in that way. Karma is the breeze in her hair on the weekend. It's a relaxing thought. Aren't you envious that for you it's not? Oh my gosh. Sweet like honey, karma is a cat. People think this karma is a cat line is so cringy, and I think that's just like weird and stupid to think that. Someone in one of my TikTok comments was saying they might be looking too much into this, but they believe karma is a cat purring in my lap because it loves me. She could have said karma is a dog. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in her own personal likes and dislikes because she's such a cat person. She's written about cats before. I guess I'll just stumble on home to my cat. But for a cat to choose you to sit with and purr on your lap, cats don't do that with just anybody. Cats are a huge lesson in consent. They will not like just anybody. It's special when a cat chooses you as their favorite person because it means they trust you. They're not like a dog. They're not super trusting. I think there's more to it than just karma is the symbol of like a loving cat. It's like you have to be special for this to happen to you. Flexing like a goddamn acrobat. I interpret this as karma is jumping through hoops to please her, like she has it tamed essentially. Spider Boy, King of Thieves. Spider. What does that mean? Oh, fuck. Genius is saying Spider Boy, SB, Scooter Braun. I do kind of think the first verse might be a little bit about Kanye and the second verse is a little bit about Scooter. My pennies made your crown. It also could be, oh shit, Scott Borchetta has the same initials. Wow, that's interesting. Because my pennies made your crown is a little more, I think, aimed at Scott just because how many years she gave to him versus Scooter. It was like one thing and, you know, I'm sure the betrayal hurt more than Scooter buying the Masters because she always hated him, but Scott was her friend, which is screwed up. Cash ain't the only price. It's coming back around. I guess Scooter was super disappointed when she started re-recording everything because it did devalue the Masters, but cash isn't the only price he will pay for doing this. It's coming back around. Repeat chorus. Ask me what I learned from all those years. Ask me what I earned from all those tears. Ask me why so many fade, but I'm still here. Wow. The longevity. There's a lot of cockroach reminiscent lyrics in this album. I think I mentioned on Anti-Hero, pierced through the heart but never killed. You can never get rid of Taylor Swift. She's always going to be relevant. Ask me why so many fade, but I'm still here. Best believe she's still bejeweled. This album has so much longevity. Themes in it. Earn from all those tears. It's giving you're on your own, kid. Put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. And then the chorus repeats. Oh, we have the breakdown chorus. Karma's the thunder rattling your ground. Karma's on your scent like a bounty hunter. Karma's gonna track you down. This is like this interesting part where it's really coming for this person who has betrayed her. This sense of urgency is injected into the new lyrics of the chorus. Karma is the guy on the screen coming straight home to me. I think this is a direct reference to Joe Alwyn because he's an actor and it's karma that she got him. You know, even though he's like not the most famous guy, that doesn't matter to her. It's the fact that she has someone so great who is sweet to her, just like karma is. It's interesting because I believe Taylor considers herself a Christian, and as far as I know, I think those two beliefs, karma and Christianity, kind of contradict each other. But I think the way she is interpreting karma is as if you are screwing over a bunch of people, they're going to do the same to you. Like, people want to be kind to the people who are kind to them. People are going to take revenge on you. There's going to be people who are like the character in vigilante shit who want to blackmail you or give out dirt on what you're doing to other people. They want to help other people you've betrayed. If they start to make friends with each other, like, there's so many ways it can go wrong. And I also think she's viewing it as like, she's trying to lift herself up also by saying like, I'm so lucky, karma is my boyfriend, karma is a god, it's a relaxing thought. She's trying to view herself as lucky as she can, because if you feel lucky things will happen to you. Like, you will start to appreciate everything good that is happening to you. Even if some bad things are also happening to you, you're going to be focused on the good, and it's going to feel like that's all that's happening to you. I hope that makes sense. Kind of like a manifestation thing, I guess, is she's not even thinking about the negatives. Positives are going to outweigh it. I also think think Taylor has always kind of expected nothing and just hoped for the best, and really took the moment and tasted it and tried to savor every single piece of success she's ever gotten, every single lucky thing that's ever happened to her. If we look back on when she was first winning awards, and she would win so many of them, but she would look so surprised, I do feel like that was genuine. I feel like she's the kind of person who's like, okay, I'm not gonna win, because she doesn't want to get her hopes up and end up heartbroken. And so she's mentally sitting in that chair telling herself, I'm not gonna win. And then they announce her name. After sitting there and telling yourself that over and over for the last 5 minutes, it's jarring. Like, I truly think she wanted to feel as lucky as possible just to mentally be okay. So this song starts off, I spy with my little tired eye. So she is exhausted from something, but she is reminiscing on this vacation they had in July in Wicklow. I think that's Ireland or Scotland, one of those places, or maybe even England. She's focusing on the little things, a tiny pebble they picked up on vacation, and it's kind of like a souvenir for them. And she's focusing on this when she's feeling really tired by something. And then she elaborates what she's so tired about. They said the end is coming. Everyone's up to something. I think this is her paranoia of feeling like she's going to be betrayed again. There's that poem from Reputation. She was wary of phone calls and fair weather friends or something. She doesn't really take phone calls like she used to prior to Kanye. Or people saying the end is coming, like for her career, because she's geriatric now. She takes refuge in Joe. Some people also interpret this as like her mom, maybe. I know her mom kind of like plays therapist for her. She finds herself running home to her loved ones, whether it's Joe or her mom or whoever. Outside they're pushing, shoving, like there's a lot of chaos in the outside world, but this person is in the kitchen humming. It's a very relaxing environment that she takes refuge in. On the way home, I wrote a poem. You say, what a mind. This happens all the time. That's so sweet, especially as a writer. Like, that's one of the best compliments for someone to tell you your mind is beautiful. I love that Joe is saying that to her, because that's something swifties always say to each other is, oh my god, her mind. Mastermind, more parallels. But yeah, I'm really happy that he does say this to her. Like, he relays the message, essentially. And for her to say this happens all the time is like, but she still never gets tired of it. It never gets old to her, him complimenting her in this way. Industry disruptors and soul deconstructors. That is so satisfying. It's like, I wake up screaming from dreaming one day I'll watch as you're leaving because you got tired of my scheming. All those internal satisfying rhymes. Smooth talking hucksters out glad handing each other. I picture that image of Scooter and Scott like on the cover of a magazine, I believe, like toasting to each other, like, and I think she was criticizing them for it actually. Like, they look like they pulled one over on her or something. Smooth talking hucksters out glad handing each other, giving themselves a pat on the back, lifting each other up for being sleazy. She is criticizing the music industry a little bit in these two lines, kind of like the criticism in Anti-Hero. Sometimes I feel like everybody is a sexy baby, the kind of things that are expected of artists. And in this one, it's more the people who run the industry and the voices that implore you should be doing more. Does anybody ever say this of Taylor Swift? I feel like this is one of the criticisms that actually isn't happening, because people in the media are just so shocked that she is as productive as she is. You should be doing more. Maybe it's not in an artistic sense at all. I don't know. There are a lot of pressures to fame though, and expectations that she could be feeling that we just don't consider. But to him or her mom or whoever, I can admit that I'm just too soft for all of it. This is another instance where she's kind of talking about maybe she's not so cut out for fame. Of course, she has those moments where it's exhausting and draining and she wants to run away to the Lakes District. It's a love-hate relationship. It also feels like a narcissistic relationship, as I mentioned in Anti-Hero. I feel like it's kind of like her relationship with fame, and it is very reminiscent of an abusive, toxic, narcissistic relationship. That is what the press is, after all. And then she switches the hook from, I find myself running home to your sweet nothing. All that you ever wanted from me was sweet nothing. All that you ever wanted from me was nothing. Like, she loves this lack of expectations in this relationship. You don't ever really read into my melancholia. This is a person who really just accepts her as she is and doesn't build it up as like, oh, I'm dating Taylor Swift, so she should be doing this, blah, blah, blah. This person just treats her as a normal person. I also see this being her mom in that way because, like, her mom knew her as a baby. Like, literally there was a time when Taylor's mom had absolutely no expectations of her daughter. She probably still views her as just regular old Taylor, as she always has, because she spent so long with Taylor before she was famous. I still cannot believe that I joked that this was going to be a song about Taylor patting herself on the back for being so smart and sneaky for snagging Joe, and it is. Sometimes the answer to things are the simplest ones. It checks out though. I mean, come on. She's so fucking obsessed with him and conspiratorial. Like, just listen to the song Gorgeous. I feel like it's kind of reminiscent. Just this obsession that was so all-encompassing in the beginning. So in the first verse, she does credit fate for how they ended up in the same room. You know, people are saying, like, this doesn't sound like it would be autobiographical, considering Invisible String is also supposed to be autobiographical. Like, people assuming that those two can't exist at the same time about the same situation. But I think they can, especially because in the first verse, she's literally saying, essentially, there was an invisible string tying us together. We were meant to meet. But she does credit herself a little bit for how it actually turned out. The touch of a hand lit the fuse, and there was a chain reaction like dominoes. She is really patting herself on the back here. Like, it very well could have been a lot of fate and coincidences, but she took a very active role, especially if she was the one pursuing him and not the other way around. None of it was accidental. She knew the first time that she saw him that she was obsessed. I mean, listen to Gorgeous. It was all by design, her saying it was just like this work of art, essentially, that she constructed. All the wisest women had to do it this way because we were born to be the pawn in every lover's game. This is very interesting, and I also think it's kind of a dated view. I think it's her rejecting that a little bit, but not completely. I don't know. I think she is playing into this, like, oh, the guy has to ask the girl out, but a lot of times it is the girl's idea. She plants it in his head subliminally and makes him think it was his idea, because there still is this idea that if you are too dominating or you ask a guy out, he's gonna be intimidated, and it's just so frustrating. But I think that's fucking ingrained in a lot of us, that we can't be too much, too pushy. We can't text twice, like, you know, it's the guy who has to do that and reach out and blah, blah, blah. I see a lot of people sharing their stories on TikTok of relating to this. There was this one woman who said her husband, when they like first went on a date, she had a feeling she wasn't going to see him again, so she left her wallet in his car. So he had to come bring it to her again, and they ended up getting married. And it was her design. The wisest woman had to do it that way, because as a woman, you're born to be the pawn. You're not supposed to take an active role in this. It makes me think of the Gatsby quotes. I hope she'll be a fool, like about her unborn daughter. She's saying that's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool. It's a little sexist, it's a little dated, but it might just be something really internalized that's really hard to break. I feel like you need like therapy for that, genuinely, to not be so passive all the time, because if it's ingrained in you when you're already in your 30s, you've dated a very long time in this very passive style. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This is a dad quote. A lot of dads say this to people. Strategy sets the scene for the tale. It's interesting because tales in the Taylor Swift reference usually means fairy tales, and she's saying there's a lot of unseen things that are not included for the listener of the story, where the girl is really just plotting and scheming the entire time how to get this guy to take interest in her. We see Taylor trying to make her lover jealous in Bejeweled. It checks out. I'm the wind in our free-flowing sails and the liquor in our cocktails. She is the entire driving force. She's saying, it's not you, it's me. I'm the one who has complete control over this. It's also kind of satisfying as a woman to have control over a situation, because so many times, like with a man, sometimes things can get dangerous. The bridge is very heartbreaking. No one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since. This makes me think of You're on Your Own Kid a little bit, to make them love me and make it seem effortless. Yeah, in the beginning of Taylor's career, I think people really loved her because it seemed like such an accident. Oh my god, this girl just suddenly got famous. And in reality, I think she had an amazing marketing team, and she was also coming up with great marketing tactics. I think her mom worked in marketing. Like, there was probably a lot of strategizing to make her fans love her. And I do believe a lot of it felt very genuine, and I think it was, like her doing that 13-hour meet and greet. You can't tell me she's being disingenuous when she's going to those lengths. But I also think there is an end goal. It's so that she strengthens this relationship with her fans, and they never fade from her. Like, they never decide they want to stop supporting her, because they literally met her and they saw how much she would do for her fans. It's a very mutualism type relationship. She did it to be loved, and she's taking these tactics, essentially marketing tactics, and using it as a way to get Joe. This is the first time I felt the need to confess. Oh my god, so she's really just laying it on him. When she says I'm only cryptic and Machiavellian because I care, it's interesting because that goes borderline like into admitting being manipulative. And I guess you could argue that this is a certain flavor of manipulation, I suppose. I mean, the words scheming and criminal are associated with a negative context. It's very self-aware. But then it's interesting because this guy smiles, and that's when she realizes that he knew exactly what she was doing. So maybe she doesn't feel so bad anymore. Like maybe when she initially confesses this to him, she's afraid he's going to be horrified that she planned this much, and he kind of fell into her trap almost. But he knew it was happening and just sat back and let her do all of this. She was doing the most, and he was like, I know exactly what you're getting at. So, you know, we get to the end and we find out it was consensual manipulation. It's really interesting. It's kind of funny. I mean, the entire thing is funny. The whole concept of her patting herself on the back for snagging him is just campy, I guess. Well, I think especially by the time they met, I'm sure he knew a lot about her public persona, and by that point in time, because they started dating a lot later in her career, I'm sure he'd read enough articles about Taylor Swift. She was a name you couldn't escape. I'm sure he knew of her, and I think people were catching on by that point that everything she did was very calculated in a way that she wanted to succeed. She wanted to get everything she ever wanted. At a certain point, when you see someone who's been that successful for so long, you start to realize there is no accident there. Like, they are intentionally trying to succeed. So yeah, I could see how he knew, because something like that is just completely within her character, within her nature. I haven't listened to this one much because I don't have a fucking CD player. It's really frustrating that this isn't available on streaming yet. I washed my hands of us at the club. So she's saying she tried to get over him. To wash your hands of something is to be done with it at the club. So she's using someone to try to get over this guy. You made a mess of me. I pictured you with other girls in love, then threw up on the street. So she's at this club getting drunk. It's not working. She ends up throwing up because she's so nauseous about this idea that he's moving on from her. Like waiting for a bus that never shows. I thought I saw you at the bus stop. I didn't though. She really can't escape him. Each bar plays our song. Our song is a slam and screen door. They say if it's right, you know. Nothing has ever felt so wrong. So she's kind of acknowledging this relationship is not correct. Love is a lie. Shit my friends say to get me by. So she doesn't completely believe that love is a lie, but it does hit different this time, getting over him. Catastrophic blues is such a cool phrase. Moving on was always easy for her to do, but it hits different because it's him. That's pretty self-explanatory. I used to switch out these Kens. I'd just ghost, rip the band-aid off, and skip town like an asshole outlaw. That sounds like a blank space character. Freedom felt like summer then on the coast. She's really embodying her Sagittarius sign. She escapes to the coast. It's giving her saltbox house on the coast took her mind off St. Louis. The sun burns her heart and the sand hurts her feelings. So this coast in the summer that is freedom to her actually ends up not feeling that great after a while. It's like being sunburnt and having sand in your swimsuit rubbing on your butt cheeks. She doesn't say that, but I know what she means. I know. Trust me. I've been here since 2006. It reminds me of It Turns Out Freedom Ain't Nothing But Missing You. It's like the exact same thing, but it's a little more sophisticated and poetic now. And I never don't cry at the bar. Also, the way she says that is so like 2000s. And I never don't cry. It's almost like country. So double negative. She's saying I cry at the bar all the time. My sadness is contagious. I slur your name till someone puts me in a car. I stopped receiving invitations. So she can't even go out anymore to try to forget this guy. This is very, very literal. I find the artifact cried over a hat. It's giving the scarf from All Too Well. Cursed the space that I needed. So I'm wondering if she's the one who ended this relationship and said she needed space. What? I have to. Sometimes she's the one who's heartbroken and sometimes she's the one breaking hearts and being not very good at communicating and saying shit like, oh, it's not you, it's me, and I just need some space. I could see it. I trace the evidence, make it make some sense. It seems like she's trying to freaking figure out where it all went wrong, why the wound is still bleeding. She's overanalyzing this. Again, very literal. She's literally saying, you were the one that I loved. I don't need another metaphor. It's simple enough. She's telling us exactly how it is. There's not much to interpret here. A Wrinkle in Time. I guess that book is about time travel, like the crease by your eyes. Oh, so she's talking about like how time might be healing things, how time can cause creases on your eyes that makes you wrinkle. This is why they shouldn't kill off the main guy. She's calling him the protagonist in her life. She's dreaming of him, dreams of your hair and your stare and your sense of belief in the good in the world. You once believed in me. That's heartbreaking. It also makes me think of I Almost Do. In my dreams, you're touching my face and asking me if I want to try again with you. That's so sad. And then when you wake up and it's like, it hits you that that wasn't real. I felt you and I held you for a while. I bet I could still melt your world. Argumentative, antithetical, dream girl. This is giving like manic pixie dream girl, but like phrased differently. I mean, she did say this is why they shouldn't kill off the main guy. Film references. exile anybody. So I think she's really calling herself like a foil to this male character. She's viewing it through a complete like film lens, how he maybe was like someone who believed in the good in the world and she was more argumentative, like they really contrasted each other, complemented each other. And there might have been some tension because of this, because they weren't like similar or like-minded, but opposites attract. The third verse is interesting. I heard your key turn in the door down the hallway. Is that your key in the door? Is it okay? Is it you, or have they come to take me away? This is interesting because it's like to arrest her, because when they say they put me in a car, is she in trouble for acting up while being drunk? That's what it sounds like. And then for take me away, do they have a warrant out for her arrest, or are they taking her to a mental hospital? I think it could be interpreted both ways. She may have done something insane while she was drunk trying to get over this guy, or maybe her friends are very concerned for her. Obviously they know how she feels based on the chorus, and they like call for someone. They stage an intervention. There's this paranoia to this song. I talked about paranoia in one of the previous songs. This is something that has been appearing in her work a lot since Folklore and Evermore. The maddest woman this town has ever seen. This dorm was once a madhouse. The entire song, this is me trying. Like this mental health type of theme. Have they come to take me away? Involuntary mental institutionalization? What a shame she went mad. What a shame she's fucked in the head. Yeah, she previously was using a lot of antiquated ideas around mental illness and hospitalization because of mental illness. I guess this is a little more modernized. Have they come to take me away? It's also so fucking paranoid. I love the paranoia in some of this. I feel like prior to Folklore and Evermore, she didn't really exhibit that a whole lot, but I think she is a pretty paranoid person, if I'm being honest with you, because she likes to have so much control over everything. I feel like we're really getting a good look into her psyche with this album. Okay, I'm about to give an incredibly biased take on this one because my family is from Ukraine. I don't know if I'm just reading too much into music this year, but like the Paramore song, The News, the new one that just came out a couple weeks ago or something, a war on the other side of the planet. I know there's been a lot of wars throughout time. It could be anything. I just like keep thinking all this new music that is coming out that references war is about Ukraine, especially at the beginning of the year. If any of these songs were written like February, March, April, that was like the only thing you saw on TV. This was so reported on. I take a lot of comfort in it, if it is in fact influenced by Ukraine. I did find a lot of comfort in the song. It's got so many war visuals. Originally, I thought it was them fighting something together because I heard the line in the chorus, my hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War. So it felt like there was this solidarity between two people in a couple. I kept thinking of Zelensky and his wife. It like breaks my heart. But it is them fighting with each other. They're having a great war with each other. Cursed you as I sleep talked. They're literally fighting. Like this is, I guess, the most tumultuous issue they've ever had in their relationship. I'm assuming it's Joe because they survived the Great War. With all of her previous relationships, it seems like the second there is trouble, they end up breaking up. Even with her longest relationship prior to Joe, Calvin Harris, it seemed like they had a really good, strong, long honeymoon phase, and then things just went south. Maybe he was love bombing her, as I said. Spineless in my tomb of silence. I lived like an island, punished you with silence. I think the Great War is Afterglow, but actually written well. Taylor herself classifies Afterglow as a glitter gel pen song, and I would agree. Just because it's like sadder doesn't negate the fact that it's very juvenile. The lyrics are super like debut era, which doesn't make it bad. It's just, come on, that's the best you can give us. Like, you're such a good songwriter at this point, and I feel like she's making up for that with the Great War. So she's really isolating herself. Tore your banners down, took the battle underground. It makes me think of would've, could've, should've. There's a line about banners in that one. Maybe it was ego swinging, so she's trying to figure out where it went wrong. They both just had too big of ego. It's like, do you want to lose the argument, or do you want to lose this person? Maybe it was her. Jealousy. I'm highly suspicious that everyone who sees you wants you. Or maybe it was like not necessarily suspicions of him cheating, but like maybe an ex of Joe's tried to ruin things. I don't know. Flashes of the battle come back to me in a blur. So she's reflecting on this. She's saying how it's over now, but she hasn't told us how it ended. That's another aspect of this like storytelling to Taylor's songwriting that still sticks around today. Even if she says at the beginning of the song that something is over, she doesn't tell us how it ends until the end. It keeps us listening all the way through. I just realized Crimson Clover is a pretty interesting line because clover symbolized luck. We saw in the song Karma that Taylor considers herself a very lucky person. For blood to spill all over her clover is like fucking up her perception of how she views herself as lucky. This is not a lucky thing to be happening. Sweet dream was over, so the honeymoon period is over, kind of. My hand was the one you reached for all throughout the Great War. Tears on the letter. I vowed not to cry anymore if we survived the Great War. These are the lines that make me think they are together throughout this, and they're standing in solidarity, and they're dealing with something external. At first I thought it was like the 2016 2016 issue, and they were like really leaning on each other while Taylor's reputation was just being dragged through the fucking mud. And she's basically saying, if we stay together throughout all of this, I'm not going to cry anymore. But I do think the verses point more towards it's an issue they're having between themselves. But it also could be a promise to never fight again if they survive this fight, I guess. So she's saying this guy is like trying it. You drew up some good faith treaties. So he's trying to come to a compromise, but she drew curtains closed. She's isolating herself again, drank her poison all alone. More isolation. This could be like a reference to alcohol, I guess. There's a lot of weird references on this album to like potential drinking problems. I just don't feel like speculating on that, but yeah. You said I have to trust more freely. He's like giving her advice, but Diesel is desire. You were playing with fire. So she's basically saying he's playing a dangerous game. He's saying she is way too guarded, and maybe it's the past that's talking, screaming from the crypt, telling me to punish you for things you never did. I pin your hands behind your back, thought I had a reason to attack, but this is of course said in a much better way, if I'm being honest. So it seems like maybe it's the past that's talking as a reference to how she's been hurt in the past and how this gives her trust issues today. Telling me to punish you for things you never did. So she justified it. Oh my god. It's like self-aware though. We see a lot of this happening in Afterglow. She's like, none of this was founded. I just started shit because I've been hurt before. And that's something you need to overcome because it's not his fault that you got hurt in the past. Like, you need to treat this as a clean slate. Bombs were closer. Oh my god. The chorus is really giving me Zelensky because it seems like they're uniting through all of this. Always remember the burning embers. So time has passed. This is over, but they need to remember how they forgave each other so this doesn't happen again. Like, history can repeat itself. They always talk about that in relation to wars. It turned into something bigger. So I guess the Great War is in reference to the First World War. That's what it was called. I think particularly in England, which is interesting because Joe is from England. So if she's talking about the First World War, it turned into something bigger. They didn't call it World War I back then. They called it like the war to end all wars, the Great War. They didn't realize it was going to be the first one. It turned into something bigger, literally. Somewhere in the haze got a sense I'd been betrayed. So it's like she's just grasping at straws here just because she's been hurt in the past. Your finger on my hairpin triggers. He's like irritating her. Triggering her, literally, is kind of how it sounds. Soldier down on that icy ground looked up at me with honor and truth, broken and blue, so I called off the troops. That was the night I nearly lost you. I really thought I'd lost you. I think the soldier is a metaphor for Joe. She saw the honor and truth in his eyes. She saw how much she had hurt him and going off like sirens, just crying. It's so interesting because it's like she really pushes it to the limit. We see this in Afterglow as well. And then she's like apologizing so frantically because she realizes how far she pushed this person to their limits. And it seems like she will push them all the way to that limit until they're about to leave. And then she's like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. It's like kind of toxic behavior from her as well. Or maybe this is about the same situation that Afterglow is about. She's just writing from a different metaphor. And hopefully she's learned since then, because this is an issue. If this is really happening in her life, we can plant a memory garden, say a solemn prayer, place a poppy in my hair. So it's more of the stressing to not forget about this. This is probably more for herself than Joe, because it seems like she's the one who started it, since he kept trying to compromise and she drew curtains closed, drank poison all alone. She's like, God, we need to never forget this. I never want to do this to you again. Say a solemn prayer, place a poppy in my hair. I guess a poppy is reference to the First World War as well, but it's also a symbol of victory in Ukraine. I think she is writing from the perspective of the First World War because the Great War is what that is called, but I'm sure she saw a lot of things on TV like the bombs falling in Ukraine, and I think that's where it maybe might have sprouted, because why would she be consuming a whole lot of First World War media? I think she just like saw these things on the news a lot and then did a parallel and then just decided she was going to write about this because she saw it everywhere. So in Ukraine, poppies symbolize victory. There's a statue in Ukraine, in Kyiv, and they put a vinok, which is the Ukrainian flower crown, on her head every victory day to symbolize the victory of World War II. I really anticipate there's going to be a lot of red poppy vinoks worn on Lady Victory as well as on people like celebrating in Kyiv. Right when I heard that line, I was like, oh my god, that is such a Ukraine symbol. But I guess it also was a symbol in the First World War, so again, like my own biased take. There's a morning glory, it was war, it wasn't fair. Morning glory is a flower too, isn't it? Essentially saying it doesn't feel that victorious to win, because they were so exhausted by this fight between the two of them in the context of the recent war in Ukraine. I mean, if Russia were to win, I don't think there would be much glory. They lost 100,000 troops at this point. What are they really fucking winning? And while Ukraine has had a lot of soldiers and civilians die in this war, they have no choice but to fight it. Like, in that case, I could definitely see a lot of people being so sad that it even had to happen again, because Russia has been doing this forever. But it will be a very happy, victorious day, because to stop having those acts of TERROR ERRORISM. I can't ever say the word on TikTok because I get banned. I don't know if YouTube's any better, but to have that be over, there will be a lot of glory. There will be a lot of relief to not have air raid alerts and damages on the civilian infrastructure. It depends. What are you fighting for? Is there something really worth fighting for? Or is it just like a senseless conflict, like it is for Russia, essentially? But in this case, if it's for a relationship, yeah, it's like, why are you doing this? Is there a need? Is it really that important to win this argument if it risks losing the person? So she's saying, yeah, we need to remember this. Try not to do it again. It doesn't even feel that good that we are no longer fighting because we really hurt each other in the process. And then she says, we will never go back. I vowed I would always be yours because we survived the Great War. I know there are rumors that like they're engaged or whatever, but I don't think this is a reference to that, even if they were secretly engaged, because that is so horrifying. It's giving like whatever happens in the Summer I Turn Pretty series. After a huge fight, just because you make up doesn't mean you need to get married right then. If anything, that's when you just like, let's just take it slow. Let's just make sure this sticks. Let's not sit in this euphoric feeling that we're all better now because we just had an enormous fight. It's bad to make that vow that she's referring to. I think it's just a vow. It's not like actual marriage. It just sounds like it is. We're burned for better. So she says this will make them stronger. They're looking on the bright side of things. It's a really good story because at the end, she does tell us how it ends. I will always be yours because we survived the Great War. Again, it wraps it up really nicely. There's like a exposition, a climax, a resolution to this story, as a lot of like country songs go. That's where we see her country background, because she foreshadows in the first verse that it's over with flashes of the battle come back to me in a blur. She's thinking back on this when she writes it, and by the end she does tell us how it ends without spoiling anything in the beginning. Very storytelling style of songwriting. This is a very general song about grief. It is giving miscarriage. It could be fictional. She's just like thinking, or maybe she saw a movie. It could really be fucking anything. Honestly, the way she writes these days, I think there is confirmation that one of her friends did suffer from a miscarriage. It's likely it's kind of written in honor of this friend for her own comfort, but she makes it so it could be like anything, losing anybody. People are also getting vibes that it could be for Ronan's mother. You were more than just a short time. It is so like parent to a child. And also, oh my god, when I saw the interpretation that it could be about a cat, it made me fucking cry. I think she still has all her cats, but fuck, that like messes me up so bad. This is how you know I'm destined to be a cat mom, not like an actual mom, because I'm over here like, oh yeah, miscarriages, or like a parent to a child, but cats, tears streaming down my face. I really like this visual she gives us in the first verse. No words appear before her. She is speechless. Salt streams out my eyes and into my ears. Now my eyes leak acid rain on the pillow where you used to lay your head. I like how she doesn't just say, oh, I was crying, because so many like basic ass songwriters say shit like that, and I'm so tired of it. Tell us what is happening. Show us what is happening. Don't just be like, I was sad and I cried. Salt streams out my eyes and into my ears. So this gives us the full picture that she's laying down on her back and crying. It's a very, very low point. Every single thing I touch becomes sick with sadness. Oh, this makes me think of your Midas touch on the Chevy door, how everything he touched became gold. And it's that like old fable, how, yeah, it sounds great because everything you touch is like rich, but it's fucking useless. You can't drive a solid gold car. And a car is such a metaphor for a relationship in the Taylor Swift cinematic universe. We see it in Style, we see it in Out of the Woods, we see it in so many songs. A car is a symbol for something, a relationship. I always felt I must look better in the rear view. They're in my rear view mirror disappearing now. I was riding shotgun with my hair undone in the front seat of his car. So many cars. Getaway car. I mean, I could go on. Where the fuck was I going with this? This is what happens when I don't script things. Everything I touch becomes sick with sadness. I think she's afraid that she didn't do enough to stop this person from leaving or from dying even. And she does elaborate on that. Did some force take you because I didn't pray? So it's this fixation, you know, I fucking relate. As someone who has OCD tendencies, to think you can stop something from happening, to think you can have enough compulsions and if you do something enough times, it will stop something horrible from happening. I don't think she necessarily has OCD. Maybe you can like fall into a dangerous pattern like that, to think that you have way more control over things that are happening to you that are bad than you actually do. I've got a lot to pine about. Taylor Swift is such a piner. We see that in all of her songs. It's kind of funny. It's like a little bit humorous in the middle of all this sadness. I've got a lot to live without. Everybody knows it. She is very open about that. But like, this is something that is dwarfing all of that. What could have been, would have been, should have been you. This is very interesting in the context of would have, could have, should have. It makes me wonder if this is a grieving of her past self. She's been on this this kick lately where she talks about losing herself. I want to be my old self again, but I'm still trying to find it. She lost him, but she found herself, and somehow that was everything. She's never going to be who she was at age 20, and so many heartbreaks have contributed to that. If you watch the behind the scenes of the All Too Well 10-minute version short film, the way she wanted to convey how much Sadie changed throughout the entire relationship in that movie, like how she wanted her to smile in a way with her friends that was contrasted to how she was smiling with him, to show that it's not completely genuine and something is lost there. She seems very fixated on this idea lately of losing a piece of yourself through something, and it's literally said in Would've, Could've, Should've, I miss who I used to be, give me back my girlhood, it was mine first. She is really missing herself. It's like tormenting her in the middle of the night, and this could've, would've, should've, it's literally like referencing it, the title. So that's a way to interpret it. It's some bird flap its wings over in Asia. This is a reference to the butterfly effect. If a butterfly flaps its wings on another continent, it can cause a tsunami somewhere else. I think that's how it goes. So she's basically saying, was this just this coincidence where like you make one decision and it just, like dominoes, it causes this horrible thing to happen to you, and it might not even have been a horrible thing that you did in the sense that it's like karma for what you did. It's just one thing changes everything. It's that concept. It's interesting that she plays with that. Like she's also playing with karma, a lot of these different like theories of how things work. And then we have that like OCD fixation. Did some force take you because I didn't do this and this and this? Every single thing to come has turned into ashes. So nothing good has happened since this trauma, this loss. Everything has just been awful. God, it's so fucking sad because it's all over. It's not meant to be. So I'll say words I don't believe. This makes me think she's trying to pray herself out of the sadness. Desperate people find faith, so now I pray to Jesus too. Like she's talked about being a Christian, but I don't think she's super religious or even super spiritual, unless in times of desperation. Fuck, this is so reflective and like deep. People are really confused by the first verse for some reason, and to me, I don't know, it clicked right away. So she's quoting somebody who's talking to her, and they give her this whole rundown of this night out they had, your ex-friend's sister, and this is the person speaking to her. So it's Taylor's ex-friend's sister. Met someone at a club. It ended up being some guy Taylor hooked up with ages ago, some wannabe Z-lister, which is kind of funny because maybe it's like a dig at her for going after someone who's like way lower on the totem pole. And they say the outfits were terrible, 2003 unbearable, which is funny because Taylor has also had some strange early 2000s outfits. And then they ask her, did you see the photos? So this is entirely her being spoken to by someone. She finally speaks when she says, no, I didn't, but thanks though. She's basically saying, I don't give a shit about any of this. Why are you telling me this? I mean, she's not being rude. She understands this person is excited about whatever they were doing out last night, but she's just off in another world because she's so in love. And she elaborates on that. Drew a map on your bedroom ceiling. It reminds me of staring at the ceiling with you from Lavender Haze. No, I didn't see the news because we were somewhere else. I really like this song, but when I first heard it, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of bitter about that line. No, I didn't see the news because we were somewhere else. Oh my god, I wish I could fucking escape from this terror on the TV because it is my family's life. But I don't think she's necessarily talking about like war. I think she's talking about like stupid celebrity gossip and drama, and she does not care about the news concerning her because she's so in love. She doesn't give a shit about the gossip anymore. He makes her not care about the public's perception of her. Stumbled down pretend alleyways, cheap wine, make believe it's champagne. I don't think they're actually in Paris. They could be because she's rich as fuck and she obviously likes to use and abuse that private jet. But stumbled down pretend alleyways. I think it's like all in their head, like staring at the ceiling, drew a map on your bedroom ceiling. She's personifying their love. Like she's using Paris as a metaphor for their love. Paris is the city of love, so they're kind of like in Paris in their head. Cheap wine, make believe it's champagne. This is so ironic coming from Taylor Swift, I'm not gonna lie. She has champagne in her house, don't fucking lie. But it's cute and it's like romantic. How you can be so in love and everything is just what you make it. If you're believing it's the most amazing wine and the most amazing place you are in. It's also kind of goes along with that theme that, you know, you can be in a really miserable place, but if you're with amazing people, it just feels so much better than it would be if you were alone. Like going to the store alone is so fucking irritating and boring and frustrating. But if you're with someone who's fun to shop with, it's a completely different experience. I was taken by the view like we were in Paris, like we were somewhere else. So I think she's straight up saying this is a make-believe situation. She She's taken by the view of him, maybe, as if he is the Eiffel Tower. I get mystified by how the city screams your name, or my original interpretation of that's a real fucking legacy to leave, where she feels so small compared to this love and compared to how amazing she thinks this guy is, even though she's fucking Taylor Swift. Privacy sign on the door, on my page, and on the whole world. Romance is not dead if you keep it just yours. I think she means page as in like Instagram page. She literally still has her comments off. Things are very private. She has a privacy sign on her entire world. Levitate above all the messes made. My babies fly like a jet stream high above the whole scene. Sit quiet by my side in the shade, and not the kind that's thrown. I mean the kind under where a tree has grown. I love the delivery of that line. I also think it's pretty cute and fun and smart. She's irritated by shade being thrown. It's happened to her a lot throughout her career. She's contrasting it with how relaxing to sit in the shade of a tree is. Also, the cheap wine make-believe it's champagne stumbled down pretend alleyways. I think it's also a testament, not that they necessarily can't afford champagne because she's Taylor Swift, or they can't go to Paris whenever they want. It's like, I like shiny things, but I'd marry you with paper rings. It's kind of like, even though that would never be a situation that would happen, she would still do it. It's like this vow that like through better or worse, rich or poor, she would always be with him and be happy, even if he can't afford fine things. Taylor Swift calling Joe poor for 10 minutes straight. Like the Range Rovers and the Jaguars. Never took her quite where Joe has. It's like that kind of theme, I guess. I want to brainwash you into loving me forever. That is such a Taylor Swift line. Self-explanatory. I want to transport you to somewhere the culture is clever. This is really interesting because it makes me think of the kind of places she lives, like Los Angeles, where there are paparazzi fucking everywhere all the time. But if she's ever in a place like, I think they were recently in New Orleans, and there are no paparazzi there, like they're just straight up aren't. Or I think in Nashville, it's a lot easier to escape paparazzi, I guess, because they're just more in New York and LA. So the culture of, I don't want to say America, because I don't think that's completely fair to all the states, but this non-Hollywood culture, I guess. You could probably find that a lot in Europe. There's probably paparazzi in Paris, let's be real, especially with like all the models there. Somewhere the culture's clever. It also makes me think of England a little bit, like the Lakes District. I guess it was very low-key. Joe's mom didn't even know who Taylor was. Or like India. I think they were in India at one point. She's kind of taking a dig at this celebrity-obsessed culture. She wants a clever culture where people are not so fixated on what she's doing and where she is. Confess my truth. That makes me think of this as the first time I felt the need to confess, but this time it's in swooping, sloping, cursive letters. That's a very in love, like love letter vibe. Let the only flashing lights be the tower at midnight. She's talking about paparazzi and how she wants to escape them, especially when she's with him, particularly in the beginning. I remember when the first time they were caught by paparazzi, she wrote Dancing with Her Hands Tied. She thought their relationship would be over. People were saying that at a secret session, she said she was crying and trying to break up with Joe because she didn't want this burden of the public perception on him. If I could never give you peace, that kind of thing. And he basically said, no, we're staying together. I don't care. But she still fucking hates it, like the paparazzi. Let the only flashing lights be the tower at midnight in my mind. So they're not actually there. Again, she's driving that home. This just gives me like Cornelia Street, staring at the ceiling with you. We drew a map on your bedroom ceiling. Like escapism in their own home. Maybe this is about like quarantine times. Like they're avoiding the news. They can't go anywhere for obvious reasons. A lot of this is giving me quarantine times, or even just like the middle of the night. Maybe they have this sudden idea they want to go to Paris, but they can't do that in the middle of the night for whatever reason. Maybe her pilot is asleep. But yeah, they're just sitting at home, staring at the ceiling and fantasizing. It's a really interesting visual nonetheless. So we have this like listing happening in the first verse, like in hoax, my only one, my eclipsed sun, my smoking gun, lock broken, slur spoken, wound open, game token. I didn't know you were keeping count. Wound open. This is weird. Lock broken feels like she crossed a boundary. Slur spoken, someone's drunk. And the other one is mad that they're drunk. Wound open, someone's bringing up an old argument that they thought was over. Game token. Someone's got a gambling problem? Oh my god. But then she says like, I didn't know you were keeping count. Is this all mistakes that she's made in this relationship? And she thought they had moved on, but he like kept it count. That makes me think of Long Story Short, no more keeping score. Maybe it wasn't as much about the media as it is about a past relationship. Definitely Calvin Harris. It's the same relationship as Bejeweled, I feel like. Especially with the Met Gala references, which is right around April 29th. I tried to pick my battles till the battle picked me. He's keeping count. So Long Story Short could be a reference to some things Calvin did to her and we just didn't realize at the time because we didn't have songs like this. We all thought it was like the media, which, yeah, it's a very valid interpretation. The battle picked her. in that case. Rain soaking, blind hoping. You said I was freeloading. Rain soaking, like someone's standing out in the rain. Stand outside my window, throwing pebbles, screaming, I'm in love with you. Meet me in the pouring rain. This happens a lot in her music. Blind hoping. So one of them was just like, had this blind hope that it would all work out. You said I was freeloading? This definitely is not about money. I think she's been richer than every single ex. Well, Jake. Jake. No, this is not about Jake. Maybe it's freeloading, cheating. Definitely cheating. I didn't know you were keeping count, Taylor. Of course someone's gonna keep count how many times you cheated on them. High infidelity, put on your records and regret me. So high fidelity is like, you know, like lo-fi music, hi-fi music. It's a play on words, high infidelity. But then she also talks about music with put on your records. So it's like extended. I bent the truth too far tonight. So this is like his breaking point. She's like, fucking finally, are you gonna like dump me now so I can leave and go be with Joe? I was dancing around and we danced all night and you can try to change my mind. Same shit. Put on your headphones. So records, headphones, high infidelity. It's like music puns, I guess. And burn my city. Your picket fence is sharp as knives. I was dancing around. It is what Genius says. I don't remember her saying it. But if she's dancing around his picket fence, like he's not letting her in. Familiarity breeds contempt. He's like tired of her, but he won't dump her. So she's just trying to have a good time with another guy and making it obvious. Do you really want to know where I was April 29th? This is so vengeful. Do you really want to know? She's like daring him to ask if she was cheating and she's gonna jump on it because she wants to leave. Do I really have to chart the constellations in his eyes? So essentially she's saying, do I really need to spell this out for you? I've seen a lot of interpretations that this is something aimed at the media where it's like, do I really need to give you all this information? I don't think it's about that at all. Storm coming. Good husband, bad omen. Good husband, bad omen. I guess this is before this cheating is even happening. Storm coming. So something is coming. She knows it's not going to last. She just has a feeling at this point, but nothing solid to go off of. Good husband, bad omen. So they weren't married, but like she viewed him as a good guy, but she had a bad feeling. There was a bad sign at some point, some kind of red flag, I guess. Dragged my feet right down the aisle. This is so getaway car. He was running after us. I was screaming, go, go, go. She feels forced into this. At the house, lonely. Good money. I'd pay a few just to know me. It seemed like the right thing at the time. So this makes a lot of sense in the context of the Calvin relationship. So it did seem right at first, at the time. But then she ends up being alone a lot at her house, lonely, good money. So she's saying, I have all this money. I would literally pay to have you get to know me as who I am. But he's not paying attention to her. More parallels to Bejeweled. You know, there's many different ways that you can kill the one you love. The slowest way is never loving them enough. I don't know if this is something he did to her or something she's trying to do to him intentionally to get him to leave her. Why would she want to do it slowly though if she wants to get rid of him as fast as possible? Maybe he's the one who caused all the flowers that they'd grown together to die of thirst. I literally explained Taylor Swift lyrics in other Taylor Swift lyrics. He was killing her slowly and eventually that love for him just burned out. She was so filled with spite over how he was treating her. Do I really have to tell you how he brought me back to life? He literally made her feel like she was valued again, even if it was something that wasn't going to last, quite like her relationship with Calvin did. It was a rebound. In the post-chorus towards the end, when she says it's never enough, I don't think she's referencing all the different ways she tried to like kill the one she loves. I think it's like everything she did to try to save this wasn't enough, so she doesn't feel bad about cheating. She repeats the first verse at the end, which is a really old Taylor thing to do. She did this a lot on Debut and Fearless, I believe. I didn't know you were keeping count, but oh, you were keeping counts. So he's holding these grudges against her. He won't leave her. It's just kind of her perspective more on why she did this. It's interesting because at the beginning of her career, she wrote about cheating in such a unforgiving way. And then once she actually did it, we got songs like Getaway Car. She was like, actually, this is completely chill and okay. And then in Illicit Affairs, she views it from an outside perspective in a sympathetic way. She's like trying to deconstruct her morals, I guess, because now that she's done it, she can't be hypocritical and be like, oh, well, I did it, but you're still awful for doing it. You know what I mean? I was really confused by this one at first because it seems like such a situationship thing. It felt like Harry, if I'm being honest with you. But I guess it's Joe because like 2,190 days of our love blackout or whatever. It's a very long-term thing. There was a glitch and they ended up being a very solid, stable relationship when it originally was like a situationship. Back when we were card sharks playing games, I thought you were leading me on. Cat and mouse for a month or 2 or 3. Like a very long time of a situationship and how it just, the dynamic suddenly changed. So I don't think I'm going to even really talk about it in a Harry interpretation because that was a very short-lived type of fling. There are definitely songs about that situation, I think, but this is very obviously Joe to me now. We were supposed to be just friends. You don't live in my part of town. This is giving more like poor criticisms. Oh my god. Depending on what kind of mood and situationship I'm in and what's in my system, is that an extension of the previous sentence? Or is that just a separate question of like, oh my god, what is wrong with me? Why is this not working out how I thought it would and we're actually becoming a stable thing? Or is she talking about like alcohol? Depending on how drunk she is, she might like see him again. That's crazy. I didn't think about that. 5 seconds later, I'm fastening myself to you with a stitch. So all of these songs, especially on Lover, that are detailing this non-committal situationship seem to really contrast weirdly with Gorgeous because she was so fucking obsessed with him and she was like, do you have a girlfriend? Kind of with the assumption that she would want to be his girlfriend. But in a lot of other songs, it's like this back and forth cat and mouse. But then in the chorus, she does say like 5 seconds later, like literally as soon as she gets the chance, she's fastening herself to him. So I think it was her just kind of playing along, being a mastermind, letting him think he had control. If it was up to her, she would have been in a relationship with him immediately, but she was just kind of trying to set her chips up to lead to that. But she seems surprised about it here. Maybe it's just different perspectives. And I'm not even sorry, she says, because I think this was her intention all along. But she has those moments of doubt. Back when we were card sharks playing games, I thought you were leading me on. So she wasn't in control the entire time, even if she had this grand master plan. Blood moonlit, I'm not going to look into when the blood moon eclipses were happening. That's too much. Maybe she means like harvest moon because that's around the fall time, which is when they actually committed to each other. A lot of like spacey references. Makes me think of how she viewed him as rare as the glimmer of a comet. Nights are so starry, it gives this very intoxicating romantic vibe. It must be counterfeit. She thinks this is too good to be true. It's gotta be some kind of glitch. I was supposed to sweat you out. She thought she could just like hook up with him and get it over with and get over it. I guess she thought this was gonna be like her second rebound. She didn't anticipate on being in such a long-term relationship after just getting out of one a few months prior with one rebound in between. In search of glorious happenings of happenstance on someone else's playground. This feels like she's referencing like taking something that isn't hers. I think back to like stealing other people's toys on the playground, won't make you any friends. This is someone else's playground, someone else's like territory. Is that the her? Maybe it was her from the Great War. Did she feel like she was taking him from someone? Oh my god. The tea. So she feels iffy about this whole thing because she's not a stupid girl. Girl at home, anyone? Maybe that's why she felt so iffy about it. Our love is blacking out, the system's breaking down, so this is at a point where she doesn't have too much control over the situation, and she looks back on it with 2,190 days of hindsight. She's like, man, this is not actually going anywhere. This is more than a glitch. A brief interruption, a slight malfunction, I'd go back to wanting dudes who give nothing. Maybe this is the fear that she thinks this is going to end and she's gonna go back to dating like dickheads. Before you, I'd only dated self-indulgent takers. So she's had a few good guys, and she always goes back to the bad guys even after she's had a good guy. So maybe she's afraid she's gonna follow that pattern again. I thought we had no chance, and that's romance. Let's dance. I think the let's dance is just to rhyme, but the tumultuousness to her is romance. Thinking something is doomed, she loves to pursue things like that. And she said that's what makes this so romantic, is like, oh my god, it actually worked this time. Because so many times she goes into things and thinks, like, wildest dreams, I hope you'll like me when this is all over. And she might go into a lot of relationships like that because every single one has ended. You have to keep that in mind. That's a lot of failures. Either you're going to break up with somebody or you're going to stay together forever and potentially get married. So she thinks every single relationship is going to end because it's never been any different. But it's a romantic thing to her when they do last way longer than she expects them to, especially when they start out as a rocky situationship. This is obviously John Mayer. We can't even pretend like it's not. I feel like some of these songs, it could be like a few different things. People kind of argue, but like songs like this, it's John Mayer. Especially 19, and then she references the age 19 in Dear John. I think she's trying to make it obvious. So this needs to be dissected line by line because it's just too good. If you would have blinked, then I would have looked away at the first glance. So this immediately sets it up as her being younger and a lot more vulnerable and naive compared to him. So it's like she's taking his lead. It's like a staring contest they're having here. So if he would have blinked, then she wouldn't have even tried to pursue it because he's so much older. She's like curious about it, but ultimately whatever he does, she's going to follow. If you tasted poison, you could have spit me out at the first chance. So if he would have thought this was a bad idea at all, he always has these digs at her for writing about him, and they're really fucking low blows. Like she always talks about how hurt she is by this, and I mean, yeah, it is a critique on his character because I think he is just shitty. She's not the only one to come out and say this, but oh my god, every time he criticizes her, it's essentially like, you're like 22 girls in one. He wrote that one song about her, and just digging at her for being young and not knowing who she is yet, which is so fucking stupid, because it's like, did you know who you were at 19? Like, let's compare your 19-year-old self to her 19-year-old self. Stop acting like you're so much better in your 30s, because first of all, you haven't even fucking grown up yet, but it's just not fair to compare someone that older to someone who's a literal teenager. So to act all high and mighty is just silly, because you're comparing yourself to a child. So if he thought she was that bad and confused about who she is, he should have just spit her out at the first chance. He should have just declined even having this relationship. He was older, he had the upper hand, he had the opportunity. And if, oh, this one just really hits me. If I was some paint, did it splatter on a promising grown man? It's a dig at how it seems like she tarnished his reputation and she happened to him when he's a grown-ass man. Promising grown man is interesting because we see all these like shitty men doing shitty things and then going to court and they say like, but he is a promising young man, and because of that we're going to give him a light sentence, and it's just absolute bullshit. But also there's the movie Promising Young Woman, which is like a pun on that, but she says she can't even say promising young man, like he's a grown-ass man, he should take responsibility for his actions, and she only realizes this in hindsight now that she's his age. I think this song is really inspired by probably re-recording Speak Now, re-recording her old work in general and realizing how tormented she might have been by this guy. We haven't seen the Speak Now vault tracks. She might have dug up some old stuff that she forgot about that detailed even more how she felt, and it just gave her nightmares or like haunted her in the middle of the night when she had nothing to do. And if I was a child, did it matter? If you got to wash your hands, oh my god, this makes me think of that quote that's like, if you think a woman is impure after you've touched her, maybe you should take a look at your hands. So if he got to pretend this never happened, even though she was like traumatized by this, did it even matter to him when she's the one who got burned? All I used to do was pray. So this is the first of these like religious references that honestly I'm not going to be that good at interpreting because I just don't have any kind of religious upbringing to go off of. Would've, could've, should've. It's such a regretful sentence. If you'd never looked my way. So she is blaming him because he had the upper hand. He was probably the one that completely pursued this relationship because she was way too young to try to pursue someone that old. He went after her. So all I used to do was pray. This could be saying before she met him all she used to do was pray, or all she used to do was pray after she was initially hurt by this. All she used to do was pray that this never would have happened or that she could find her old self. I would have stayed on my knees. So she would have stayed innocent, I guess, like stayed on this, I guess in the religious sense, like faithful to the church, I guess. I damn sure never would have danced with the devil at 19. So he could be the devil, but it's also like the entire concept could be the devil as well. I never would have done such a thing. And she's saying, but the God's honest truth is that it was an enjoyable experience while it was happening. She was invested in this relationship. Obviously that's why she was so hurt by it. That makes me feel icky. And now that I'm grown, I'm scared of ghosts. Memories feel like weapons. So she's haunted by this, she's saying. It makes me think of Anti-Hero, all of the people I've ghosted stand there in the room. He probably ghosted her though, once he was done with her. She does talk about that a little more in the second verse. And now that I know, I wish you'd left me wondering. I think a lot about songs like 29 by Demi Lovato that detail a relationship with someone older. I always thought songs like that would be kind of helpful for girls. If I would have had something like that, I wouldn't have dated a guy who was way too old for me. I feel, but it's like hindsight is the best medicine, I guess. It's like the only thing is to know how bad it is firsthand. I don't know, when there's really, really honest songs about how fucking awful it is that don't romanticize it at all, maybe that will help someone. Maybe it will encourage some younger girl to not go for the guy that is way too old for her. But yeah, I think she encapsulates that very accurately. Now that I know, I wish she'd left me wondering. I wish I would have just wondered all those years and heard other women's experience of dating older men and just always kind of wondered if it would have been so bad for me. But like, you're so curious. It's like, I knew you were trouble. You just can't help yourself. It's like Sleeping Beauty with a spinning wheel. If you never touched me, I would have gone along with the righteous. So it's more like I would have stayed on my knees. I would have followed this religious good girl path. If I never blushed, then they could have never whispered about this. I feel like maybe the press kind of pushed them together. A lot of times the press is what like ruins her relationships, it seems. But maybe people not encouraged her, but put the idea in her head, because I know they collaborated together, and maybe that's when people started saying, oh my god, there's something going on with those two. And them saying that is what put the idea in her head, or put the idea in his head, and almost kind of manifested this relationship that should have never happened, because people were speculating on something that might not even be a thing yet, that is definitely not appropriate to be happening in the first place. If you never saved me from boredom, I could have gone on as I was, left me wondering, kind of same parallel. So she was like bored or like curious about a guy that was that much older than her, but Lord, you made me feel important and then you tried to erase us. So in the chorus, it sounds like all of the people I've ghosted, but she did not ghost him because he's the one who did ultimately end it. She tried really hard. We see it in Dear John, kind of how it ended. He ultimately was the one who changed the relationship dynamic and probably started being really shitty after love bombing her. She might have ultimately been the one to say, this is over because I like myself, but she's heartbroken because he was the one probably who spun shit around and wasn't acting like he was in the beginning, because that's how they lure you in. You're a crisis of my faith. More really religious things. Oh shit, wait, is this a reference to their half of my heart thing? Because he has a verse, your faith is strong, but I can only fall short for so long. Did she lower her standards for him? Oh my god. So it's like, maybe he wasn't good enough for her, and he's like, well, I can only be here for so long and accept this, you not accepting me. She should have kept her standards all the way up. Down the road later on, you will hate that I never gave more to you than half of my heart, but I can't stop loving you. Sure, ew. I don't think you love Simone if you're only giving them half of your heart. It's such a like romantic sounding title, half of my heart, but it's like only giving half of yourself to someone, not being fully committed. Of course it ended like this. He like spelled it out for her. Ew. Ew, this makes me feel so icky. You will hate that I never gave more to you. Down the road later on, now that I'm grown, I'm scared of ghosts. He like foreshadowed this. This makes me so icky. If I'd only played it safe. She should have known. I should have known. She sings that in Dear John, would have, could have, should have, so much regret. She probably really had a feeling this was not going to end well, but curiosity killed the cat. So in the bridge, God rest my soul, I miss who I used to be, as I explained. She has a lot of like, God rest my soul, bless my soul kind of lines. The tomb won't close. Maybe it's the past that's talking, screaming from the crypt. Is this the crypt from the Great War? Probably. The shit John did to her is now like affecting how she sometimes views Joe. That's so fucking sad because he's a piece of shit compared to like how precious Joe has been to her. I'm so sad. Is that why Joe's like 2 years younger than her? She was like way too burned by older men. Well, Tom was good though. I know he was good to her, but she was not so good to him. Stained glass windows in my mind is really interesting. So it's like church imagery. Oh, so maybe it's like her having this church that could have been in her head. She's tying the church to like her past self that she is missing. She misses who she used to be. This church is in her mind of like the good girl she once was, but she can't get it back. It's just all mental to her now. I regret you all the time. It's such a song about regret. Fight with you in my sleep. She's essentially saying she has nightmares. The wound won't close. I keep on waiting for a sign. I regret you all the time. The sign could be like a sign to move on, but I don't think she needs a sign. I think she's really trying. I don't know, a sign for something. A sign that it's going to die soon, a sign that it's going to ever get better. If clarity's in death, then why won't this die? I remember seeing some interpretation of this line that there's some religious teaching, I think in the Bible, that death brings the biggest clarity, maybe to your spirits, maybe to the people around you. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but she's essentially saying this is the most clarity she's ever had on the situation because she is now the age that he was. She has never had this much perspective on it as she does now. Like, this is as smart as she has ever been. This is the most clarity she's ever had on this situation, even with it tormenting her for so long. She's never viewed it this way before. So she has the utmost clarity, and she's wondering why that is not coinciding with death, how her religion has always taught her. So she's wondering, okay, I have the most clarity I ever have. Why won't it fucking die? Why am I still tormented by this, even if I've looked at it from every angle possible? Even if there's no other way to dissect this and analyze this and psychoanalyze myself and how this has affected me. It's been years of tearing down our banners, you and I, her having to construct the new self that she is from losing her old self and having to find herself as she always has to do. She's torn down everything she can having to do with him. Years of living for the thrill of hitting you where it hurts. So really just making digs at him. She's tried to get as much satisfaction out of this as she can to heal herself. It's still not dying. And then the final line of that third verse, give me back my girlhood, it was mine first. I think people are taking this as a metaphor, like how she said the scarf is a metaphor if you are picking up what I'm putting down. It doesn't make much sense. I also feel like people are always saying like, you think John was just fine with making out and that's it. No, I feel like it depends on what Taylor is fine with, unless you think something really bad happened there. I believe what she said about the scarf if she's telling us straight up how something happened, which it really feels like she is. I feel like girlhood in this case is purely just who she was. Like, she talks about that so much in this song, missing who she was. I miss who I used to be. It's not that she regrets like doing something with him. I think it's the entire person that she was, her entire like teenagehood, because she can't necessarily say that in All Too Well because she was like 20, 21. It's a little bit older at least. God, why did these two men come right after each other? What the fuck, Taylor? Maybe she was just really vulnerable still, and that's how the other ones swooped in. But yeah, I think girlhood is completely a word embodying her teenage self, her past self. Give her back to me, she was mine first. And how she had to grow up too fast, like mentally, having to process something like this, how vulnerable it leaves you to another piece of shit, potentially. It's a very nightmarish outro because it just repeats so much, and I think it's symbolic of how this torment has repeated all throughout her life since this happened. It's been years, and she's showing us how awful this feels for it to never fucking end. This is like one of her best songs ever. This might be my favorite song on the extended edition. I don't know. I have to redo my ranking. It's definitely giving grooming anyways. This song has also really grown on me. I still think it's my second to least favorite above Labyrinth, just because the sound isn't really resonating with me, but there's amazing lyrics in this. So I had a friend who told me Dear Reader feels like a reference to, I think it's Jane Eyre. I haven't read a ton of classics, but I think it's like a literary reference, but it also is a reference to those advice columns of like the 90s, 2000s. Dear Reader, people would submit their problems and then this anonymous person would give advice. And this song, it's obviously by Taylor Swift. It's on the Midnight's album. She's writing it as if she's anonymous though, and I think that's a really interesting writing prompt to go with. So she's giving advice from an anonymous perspective. Dear Reader, if it feels like a trap, you're already in one. Get out your map, pick somewhere and just run. A lot of stuff about maps and running away. Very Sagittarius. So run away, burn all the files, desert all your past lives, like reinvent yourself as she has done so many times. And if you don't recognize yourself, that means you did it right. When Reputation came out, she was like, the old Taylor is dead. I think she's been trying to find the old Taylor ever since. And she didn't recognize herself maybe at that point because she was in such a state of crisis. And now she's kind of going back to her roots a little bit and realizing that she can still be all of those versions of herself at once. She might not have recognized herself during the Reputation era because she did try to completely cut herself off from her past self, and now she's reconnecting with it. Never take advice from someone who's falling apart. This is ironic, but they don't know that because they don't know it's Taylor Swift writing it. Like the reader, I guess. The reader, I guess, is like us, but we know it's Taylor, so it seems like she's talking to someone who doesn't know that it's her. Dear Reader, bend when you can, snap when you have to. We love a good Legally Blonde bend and snap reference. Really what it means is like you should be flexible where you can and try not to take things to heart too much. But if you have to snap, if you have to put your foot down and set some boundaries, don't hesitate to do that. You know, you should be flexible for the ones that you love and try to give them grace, but you know, be like a snake. Bite someone when they step on you. You don't have to answer just because they asked you. This feels like an interview kind of advice. Like just because someone is asking you something doesn't mean you have to answer. It makes me think about like her in the blue dress with the ponytail, BMAs or something. There was some, or Brit Awards, I can't remember where she was, but someone asked her, how do you feel about Justin Bieber winning whatever award so young? And she said, can we have another question? Like you can do that. I also think this is something you can employ even if you're not a celebrity. Like if someone, even if they're close to you, asks you a question you don't feel like answering, you don't have to answer just because they asked if they're overstepping their boundaries. And then she goes on to say the greatest of luxuries is your secrets. So in her case, obviously, it is very important because she needs to keep something from the eyes of strangers. For us average folk, obviously it's not as critical because strangers don't care about our lives. But I think it is like keeping something for yourself. Like when she talks about keeping relationships to yourself, in particular when she gives people that advice, even though it's not from the media necessarily, I think it's like maybe don't post about things constantly online, even if you only have your friends and family watching, because there could be like acquaintances, there could be not so close of friends, there could be people lurking in the shadows who want to betray you. And if they like know too much, if you're literally giving them ammo, it's good to keep things to yourself sometimes. When you aim at the devil, make sure you don't miss. This feels like when she tried to fire back at Kanye for saying that terrible line about her and it backfired. Like if you're gonna take someone down, make sure they do not get up again. You have to make sure you have your shit backed up. So I wander through these nights. I prefer hiding in plain sight. More like midnights, wandering, staring at the ceiling, kind of this aimlessness about a lot of songs here. I prefer hiding in plain sight. This makes me think of how she has hid in plain sight, wearing hats, masks, whatever. I think she's been known to do this. My fourth drink in my hand, these desperate prayers of a cursed man spilling out to you for free. This makes me think of how she talked about Folklore and Evermore, like she really likes taking a fictional approach, because on the worst of days when she was writing autobiographical songs, I think she said it felt like she was like loading this headline fodder into a cannon and like giving them material to write about her with. The fourth drink in my hand, more just like alcohol issues. Desperate prayers of a cursed man spilling out to you for for free, but I didn't pour the whiskey. I'm getting some parallels. So she's spilling out all of this advice for free because she's anonymous in this whole idea of the Dear Reader advice column. And then she's saying, but darling, please, you wouldn't take my word for it if you knew who was talking. She's saying if anybody knew who it was giving this advice, they wouldn't believe her. They wouldn't follow this advice. Obviously, we know who it is, so it's like not entirely, I think, genuine because this is not an anonymous song. I think this writing style is very distinctly Taylor though, and I feel like some people might guess. She's done this before where she's written songs and not taken credit. Nils Sjoberg. She could have done that with this one. That would have been so interesting. Or the Better Man song. In the beginning, people didn't know it was her who wrote it. She wanted the song to shine on its own without her name attached to it. And a lot of people would not take her advice because she's so polarizing for people. Even if it's good advice, there are so many people that will just dismiss her just because she's Taylor Swift. I want her to write an anonymous book. That way people will read it, even if they hate her. But then it's also irritating because it's like, I would pop it to the top of my TBR if I knew it was by Taylor Swift. But if I didn't, I might take an interest in it, but I have like 6,000 books on my TBR. So if you knew who was talking, if you knew where I was walking, if you knew what I'd been through, if you knew this might be kind of hypocritical of me to advise you to do because maybe I haven't necessarily taken my own advice. If you see someone saying like, you know, do as I say, not as I do, sometimes it feels a little bit disingenuous. She may very well be telling us to avoid the mistakes that she has made, and that's never something someone necessarily wants to follow too closely because it's like, well, if you didn't do it, why should I? She elaborates, if you knew where I was walking to a house, not a home, all alone because nobody's there. So it's like, how can you give this advice on relationships if you are all alone and isolated? I don't want to end up like that, so why would I take your advice? She's saying she paces in her pen like a caged animal, and my friends found friends who care. So this advice she's giving may have landed her in this position, drawing these boundaries. You know, if we go back and look, bend when you can't, snap when you have to. She might have set a boundary someone didn't like, so they left her. Or a friend might have asked her a question and she didn't want to answer it because she's had people betray her to the press. She used to do that thing where she would tell each of her friends different information, and whichever one leaked, she would know who of her friends was betraying her. And in protecting her peace, you also end up with a very small friend group. Or if she changed too much, deserting all her past lives, reinventing herself, running away. There's so many things she advises us to do that may have landed her in the situation where she's completely alone. Her friends found friends who care. Obviously, she's someone who does care about her friends, but she also has to take herself into consideration. That's what she's advising us to do in the second verse. Bend when you can, but snap when you have to. She's not saying be a piece of shit and don't give anyone any wiggle room. She's just saying if they cross a line, please respect yourself. But then here she is all alone because maybe she's only found some shitty people. But then she says there's a plus side to this. You know, no one sees when you lose when you're playing solitaire. Like, no one sees her downs like they used to. Like, there are people who've betrayed her because they knew she was in a vulnerable state. And now she's saying, well, when I'm feeling low, no one can use it against me. So at least there's that. So it's like, what's more important to you? Having friends or not being taken advantage of? And then anonymously, she's saying you should find another guiding light. And then she says, but I shine so bright. And because we do know it is in fact Taylor Swift writing, we understand what she means. She's very influential. People listen to the advice she gives through songs, through poems. Yeah, and to say guiding light, it's a metaphor for someone who's being a role model, but it's also like a guiding light is bright. She is the brightest of all of them. This is a very different ending to the standard edition. It's so, you know, to have this entire album of all of this experiences she's sharing with us and giving us advice indirectly and doing so, and she knows people are going to take what she says and maybe apply it to her own life. And then she finishes the album by saying, maybe don't take everything I say to heart because a lot of things I've done have backfired on me. And I think that's a very nice way to wrap up Midnights because ultimately it is the sad girl hour. Even if you do have some fun times, some parties, and you fantasize about revenge and you feel very lucky sometimes, like with Karma, hit sad girl hours. Nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. Please leave me all of your Midnight songs interpretations down below. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast of a YouTube video. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you want to follow me on my Instagram, it is right here. And if you want to follow me on my TikTok, that is right here. I will see you all next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye, guys.